Welcome back to another episode of Cobra Kai Companion. And I am Peter. And you guys joining me again for the recap of episode 502, Molé is Watch Party. How you doing, sir?
I am very good. Happy to be here, Peter.
Yeah. I'm excited to talk about this episode, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
This episode is written by Joe Piorulli, and also happy belated birthday. And Luan Thomas, a writing duo there, directed by Stephen Sachita, who also directed the first episode. Um, we had a lot of positive feedback about that first episode. We picked up a lot of new listeners. I got some new members, who I believe found the pod and then joined the group. So we're off to a pretty good start. I'm still kind of waiting on our fellow podcast buddies because I want to hear what everyone else has to say about these episodes as well. But shout out to Jeremy over at the Cobra Guys. Yeah, I think what did he share? He shared one of our what was it, the first episode, or he shared something recently. It was basically like CKK coming in hot, this season or something like
Yeah, I
that.
saw that. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So I think this weekend, I think they're doing 501. So definitely looking forward to that. But how you been this week? This is the second week in a row. So we're yeah, like he said, we're off to a good start.
Yeah, I'm excited to be doing this. I've been hard at work trying to put out some videos, get into some more analysis and stuff. So I put out a couple, been working actually some long nights getting this done. But yeah, getting through
Yeah, I
there.
understand that. Yeah. I understand the long nights. I mean, to pimp out one of your recent videos, you did what is it titled? Like, did Hawk get nerfed or something like that?
Yeah, it's Hawk nerfed. I picked that
Yeah,
up
okay.
from other people because people kept saying that Hawk was nerfed, Hawk was nerfed. So I thought, you know what? I love Hawk, so let's look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. I enjoyed the video and I learned nerfed through your video. So so there you go. Yeah, it's a really great look at kind of the lack of Hawk, and
Hmm.
actually some of the other characters too. So you definitely touch on that, and
Yeah,
I'm
Hawk and
sure you'll
Dimitri. Yeah.
exactly. So I'm sure you'll be sprinkling some of that stuff in as we get to some of those episodes as well.
Hmm.
Definitely no Hawk in this episode, unless well,
Yeah,
there's
but there's very few kids. Just Tory.
right
Um,
Kenny. There's a
Kenny's
Kenny
there
there.
briefly, I think, and then Miguel, obviously. But
Right,
um,
right, right. Well, aside from the main four that like this whole season's about too.
yeah.
So I guess the only little bit of news that has come out since we've last recorded is this new return to the original series Karate Kid film that has come out. What have you read about this film? Aside that it's I guess they're shooting for like what is it, June or July of 2024.
Um, yeah. So what happened is apparently, Sony put a Karate Kid film on the release date schedule. Yeah, for like summer of 2024, I guess it was. Which a few months ago or whenever the heck it was, there was word of like another Karate Kid film, and then there was like a synopsis about something that was like the reverse, where the teenagers teaching the adult or something. And we're assuming this is the same, but yeah, so like this, I'm just skeptical about the whole thing because studios partially they have to like for like business reasons, they have to like put release dates and stuff out way in advance because like they're required by law to predict income and such. So they're doing that. So but that doesn't necessarily mean it'll ultimately happen. So
Yeah, it
yeah.
it actually that news kind of reminds me of I'm forgetting the exact franchise. I feel like it's Terminator. Like
Mhm.
didn't like something have to be announced for Terminator or like the rights would be released back to Cameron or something like that? Like I'm forgetting the details. Or was it
Well, that
Avatar?
happens a lot actually.
Okay.
There's all sorts of
Yeah.
like situations where, if you don't put something out in X number of years, um, that happens. So yeah, that's yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I just don't know is if this is really something that are happening or something. I tend to think it's like a screenwriter wrote a script that was like a spin on the Karate Kid, and a producer got it and said, "Hey, how about instead of calling it a spin on Karate Kid, let's just call it the Karate Kid and call it a
Right.
reboot or something." And to try to just it's just the business to build up interest in the film and like this producer's film, took it to Sony's like, well, maybe we got this Cobra Kai, let's see. And then so it's sitting there, but I don't know.
Right. I guess the other thing to add, because like somebody has asked John about it, and he says as much that they have no involvement in the film.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
no.
know. I don't know if anyone speculated this or has said this anywhere on social media, but has anyone even considered that, like, what if this was like Cayman's Flying People movie? Or like a spin-off or a prequel or young Miyagi or something to that effect. Just because like the choice words of like the return to the original Karate Kid series or something like that. I'm forgetting the exact wording of
Yeah,
it.
return to the roots. The problem is the way I see it is I'm not even sure where that phrase came from.
Yeah.
Like, did it come from Sony? Did it come from, some producer or some marketing person? I don't know.
And then
But
I
I get the
saw
impression it's not connected to the Miyagi verse, based on what John said. Um,
okay.
I
Yeah,
mean, because he
that's
said it's
fair.
not associated with Cobra Kai or something, which I'm taking as the Miyagi verse. So,
Okay.
and
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 then
since we got a synopsis or some sort of plot description for something like a month or two ago that was like a completely different story, like a reverse of it, it
yeah,
just
and
sounds different.
And that's what I hate about like something like Twitter, for example, because
Mhm.
I feel like I saw a tweet that tried confirming that, Ralph and Billy were going to reprise the characters. And I'm thinking, how and at what capacity? Like that this just makes no sense. So it's very much like the game of telephone right now. Just like, oh, Karate Kid film, okay. And people are kind of making their own speculations. And at this point, nobody really knows what the hell is real and not.
Right.
But yeah, I already posted it on Instagram because somebody did ask for my thoughts. I did a little brief Ask Me Anything, and someone mentioned, the film. What are your thoughts? And I said, I feel like it's a little unfair to kind of judge something just like on the idea of it. We don't know
Mhm.
if it will actually be released. We don't know who's involved, writer, director, actors, all of that. Because, humor me for a second, but let's just say that, Cayman wrote it, right? But yeah, no Ralph, no Billy, no nothing like that. You telling me that like a lot of people will not watch it, even if like Robert Mark came and penned the script, for example. So I just think like it depends on who's involved. I think people should kind of wait before they start like boycotting a film.
Well,
That's
yeah.
my 2 cents. I'd watch it, right? I mean, if it's Robert Mark Kamen and it's like
If
the
it's
Flying
Robert
People.
Mark Kamen, I'm skeptical of that.
Okay,
But
sure.
you know,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, all right. Well, I think that's pretty much it. Still no news about a season 6. The guys are still working on Obliterated. There's a few interviews out there if you guys want to check it out. They're in their second month of production. Don't know how long it's going to go, but what is it? 8 episodes? I feel they were saying, but recently, I think it was Hayden that tweeted it out, basically like, "You guys have no idea, like the shit that we just filmed." Like,
oh,
and then I
did it?
think John retweeted it or might have added to it. I think this is just a couple nights ago at the time of this recording, but something
But
exciting. Yeah.
it's an hour long shows, right?
Okay,
So if
that
it's
is
eight
different then.
episodes, I think it's still more than like a Cobra Kai season would be.
Right, that's fair. Okay, so yeah, we're looking definitely more than 3 or 4 months then in
Yeah,
comparison, to Cobra Kai.
yeah.
Okay. All right. We will get into this again. We are talking about Molé, episode 2 of season 5. As per usual, the synopsis is provided by Amy.
Well, wait, but can I
Yeah,
stop you?
absolutely.
What do you think the title Mole means? I mean, like, why is this called Mole?
Okay, so I didn't look it up, but I'm gonna assume stands for mole, right? Like somebody infiltrating because like
No,
no?
I
Okay,
sent you a picture of Mole. It's
uh,
Spanish.
where's the picture? Oh, the food. Okay, that's
Yeah,
mole? No kidding.
yeah. Mole is like a like chocolate. Um, it's a Mexican dish.
Okay.
It's like chocolate often served with chicken, like it's a pollo mole or something. So it's
That's
like
why I
chocolate.
asked.
It's not sweet. It's a
Okay.
lot of times, and this is my only guess, is a lot of times it's made with chilies or something. So like
Ah,
maybe spicy. So it's like it's not like chocolate like a candy. It's like a chocolate dish. With like with but spicy or something.
yeah,
It's a different preparation that
right.
is popular in Mexico. You can go to probably a lot of Mexican restaurants would serve it. Maybe not Taco Bell, but
Okay.
you know, a decent Mexican restaurant may have mole on the menu. Um that's why I for those who don't know, I had mole for dinner in preparation of this recording. So
Okay. See, I didn't know that's what it's called because that's why I asked you. I was like, hey, where's the chicharron? You know, and
mhm.
I was almost like, okay, you're eating Mexican food for a episode about like the Mexico storyline, you know. So I
Yeah,
didn't quite get it, and it's funny you bring this up because like in season one, Escalero, like I remember like asking Tom, I was like, hey, what do you think that means? He goes, escalation. I go, that's what you would think, right? But I looked it up and it was skeleton, you know.
skeleton.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
so kind of different but same, you know. So like, yeah,
right.
I'm thinking mole, but it's actually a dish.
Yeah,
So
that's but
yeah.
like I don't know how it relates necessarily to this episode, except for maybe that there's chilies. Like that's like the only connection I can think of. But
Or if you follow me on social media, you'll see that Austin Powers is a fan of this episode. Mole, mole, mole. I saw that Joe
yeah,
Pirole, he liked the tweet there
yeah,
of that, basically saying that Mole was his favorite season five episode. Okay, well there you go. We be learning. Did not know that for sure. So I guess you know if what you're saying like the dish is also cooked with like chilies, I can see the connection there and
yeah.
the fact that it's like not even the translation, right? But just like on paper, the word it looks like it could be mole, which is definitely what this episode's about with chosen.
Yeah, that's a weird. I guess so. Um, I
And you looked
wonder
at
if
like mole as well,
what
like
is the Spanish word for mole? I don't
yeah.
actually know. Because I just see mole and I think of the Mexican dish.
Okay, how about this? I will read the synopsis and you see if you can find
I'll
the Spanish translation for mole.
let me look.
Okay. All right. So she says we got a brief glimpse of a young chosen in flashback form, training with his uncle, who we see has a very intense teaching style. In present day, Terry monologues in front of his students about Kreese, the championship, and the strangers in the room, including Chosen, who are trying out for a part in Terry's current psychotic break. Tori rolls in late and distracted, but Terry's in too good of a mood to care and instructs everybody to break off and warm up with the new guys. Chosen takes this opportunity to size up Tori. In Mexico, Johnny still doesn't understand enough Spanish to realize his van is about to be towed, and Robbie is full on board with finding Miguel if he doesn't kill his father first. They don't have a car and they have little money, but thankfully, Robbie understands conversion rates, watches a lot of YouTube, and has an iron stomach. When they stumble into a hot pepper eating contest, they throw down and the cash they have and go all in, and Robbie wins. There was some slight cheating involved, but they got the money they needed, and Johnny is proud of his kid, even if he pocketed the final chili. Side note, Robbie should have immediately thrown the pepper away and washed his hands for an hour. Miguel is still attempting to bond with Hector, who is easily distracted and still weirdly committed to hanging out with the teenage boy he just met. He seems to want to impress him and takes him out to his fight club. After getting a tip from Carmen, Johnny and Robbie show up there in their novelty FBI shirts and are immediately clocked by one of Hector's guys as a problem. Instead of taking a moment to glace at the back of the shirts, glance at the back of the shirts when they walk by, he immediately calls to warn that the feds are there, which sends Hector into a paranoia spiral where he accuses Miguel of being a snitch, demands to see his phone, and then drags him out to another location where he'll lay low for a while until trouble passes. Miguel quickly realizes that Carmen was right. Hector is a little bonkers, and he has to get out of there. For once, Johnny has excellent timing and shows up to reunite with Miguel and take him home. Miguel missed out on seeing Johnny take out an MMA fighter with the chili pepper that miraculously grew three sizes since the last time we saw it. Last time we saw it. So he has no idea why he's beaten and bloody, but he's known him long enough to not even ask. Back in the valley, Chosen and Terry have been getting to know each other for a couple of days, but Terry has come to the conclusion, based on regional Japanese drinking expressions, that Chosen is a rat and dramatically confronts him in the dojo with the other senseis. Chosen takes them down effortlessly, effortless. effortlessly, lays his cards on the table and tells Terry to stand down, stop expanding, and stay away from the LaRussos. Terry is unmoved as he stands over the pile of senseis Chosen leaves behind. And as usual, she gets it all. I love that. Love the recap. So first impressions, like what do you remember when you first watched this episode, and just overall thoughts, I guess.
It's definitely a very intense episode. It covers a lot and kind of leaves you really excited, especially with the Chosen finale there, the fights. So yeah, very intense. It's a roller coaster actually. This is a good episode of like a roller coaster where you're cheering and there's a lot of suspense.
Yeah. I usually I feel like I use that very similar phrase like in our notes together here, like the little
Hmm.
chat that we have. I said
Right. Yeah.
roller coaster of emotions. You got I mean some people have cited this as an episode that made them cry. I mentioned like somewhere on social media I said this was like crying Miguel season. We get like at
Hmm.
least three instances of open mouth crying Miguel, which is like the saddest thing ever. And but yeah, there are a lot of laughs, a lot of emotional moments, but definitely intense for sure. At least three different scenes for me that stick out.
Hmm.
So let's
Yeah.
dive into this.
Real quick
Yeah.
on mole English to Spanish, but it's saying topo, but
Huh.
it's referring to mole on your skin. Um,
Oh,
so
interesting.
I tried like searching spy or something, but I couldn't find that. Um, so
Huh.
yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Well, we tried. We tried.
Yeah,
I'm sure, some of our Spanish speaking listeners will definitely reach out and let us know.
see if
So,
there's.
and then we can bring it up next time, which by the way reminds me, you had a note that you weren't able to kind of get in on the first review. Did you want to kind of bring that up again about the Miguel and Luis in the first episode?
Oh, you know what? I'll bring it up when we get to them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we might as
Okay.
well just bring it up right there when we're there.
Got it. So something that a lot of us did not expect, we get a flashback, Okinawa,
Mhm.
1972, and Sato is training American soldiers, and we also see young Chozen. I wrote down that this is, perhaps Sato is taking over as Guardian around this time,
Mhm.
and also about 12 to 13 years before his voice gets even huskier, where he needs a lozenge.
Yeah. Uh, that I think this is the best flashback of the series so far. I may have to
Ooh,
say,
okay.
yeah. For I am so in love with, especially the young Sato. It's just like the way he nailed it is so amazing. So yeah, this is my favorite one. And there's a lot of interesting stuff. Like this is a hard exercise. It looks like they're bleeding. There's blood in the sand, I think, for all of
Yeah.
them except Chosen. Um, and then we
It's
see, yeah.
Probably the repetition, right? Like how long have they actually been doing that? They're
Mhm.
strengthening their fingers, their
Mhm.
hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see that, and that's
Mhm.
why Young Chosen puts a little pillow inside his
Mhm.
whatever it's called. But yeah, he's very Sato's very aggressive, even to his nephew.
Mhm.
We're gonna find out a little bit later that his father died when he was young, so this is probably around that time. But when and I remember kind of your reaction. You're like, "Oh, is that Santos? That is this chosen?" Like you were really excited about it.
Mhm.
And for me, like the what Santos wearing is like, "Oh, that's what he wore in the second movie. Oh, that's what
Yeah,
Chosen
that's
wore."
true. Yeah.
Yeah, the fist and everything. So
Mhm.
all very recognizable for sure.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, the actors who play both of those characters, they look the part for sure.
Yeah, look at nail it. I like how Sato says here, he mentions strong mind, strong body, which Chosen is going to repeat later.
Yep.
So we see like also the origin of Chosen. I also think it's interesting. Chosen in this episode, he talks a few times about cowardice. And like when Sato walks away, he puts the pillow back in the sand. Um, which I always thought was kind of interesting. That maybe this young Chosen, he's still afraid of getting hurt or something.
I think so, and I think that's going to kind of play into like what we see in the Karate Kid Part Two, because that was it when he's talking to Daniel a little bit later, where he even when his uncle was teaching him about honor, he was still kind of taking shortcuts just to kind of get ahead. I'm paraphrasing what he says there. And I think maybe that's what it is. Like he's like wet behind the ears, right? Like he's still a white
Yeah.
belt,
Hmm.
along with American soldiers, which I
Hmm.
do like this too, because even like Sato tells these guys like, American soldier training is not enough or something like that,
Hmm.
So yeah, I can see, why his voice gets the way it is. It's all this screaming at the American soldiers. So, but shout out to Joe, again, one of the writers of the episode. He 3 days before season 5 dropped, he tweeted out a picture of Sato, and he's been doing this too for the last few seasons. He says, 3 days, or you have to. He quotes Sato from the second movie, basically, and I knew
Right.
exactly what he was doing, and I said that I could hear this picture or something like that, or hear this
Yeah.
tweet because I knew
I think
exactly
I
what he was doing.
remember that. Yeah, three
Yeah,
days. Yeah.
yeah, 3 days.
Mhm. Mhm.
Anything else on this before we move on?
Um, no, I think that's it. But yeah, just it really sets up Chosen. It sets up so much. That's why I love it. Honor, cowardice, and young Chosen. Great, young Sato there. So really I think it's a great opening to the episode.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's great cold open, and you mentioned it that what Sato is saying here, that's some of this stuff has still stayed with Chosen all this time. Again, he'll
Hmm.
repeat it to Tori later.
Yeah.
So present day Cobra Kai Dojo, this is the flagship in Encino, obviously. Terry Silver is addressing the class and updating them on Kreese, which he says, he's kind of fallen to his demons, and also says he's not Cobra Kai, but they are. And this part I did find interesting. Terry Silver says that he brought in like the finest senseis like in the valley. So did he just put out like a how did he quote unquote find them? Because we're gonna find out that he doesn't even know Chosen's name yet, Sensei Joe.
Yeah, they just showed up. I guess he aggressive job hunting or something. Um
Yeah,
which I suppose isn't possible if you know people and you have money, you can call a, headhunter or someone. Like he could call Ron up, right, from the board and say, who are some of the top senseis? Maybe the All Valley board knows. They give him some names and numbers, and maybe he called some people as well as putting up advertisements somewhere.
yeah, yeah.
Because I think Chosen mentions or I don't know if he specifically says hi, saw your ad or something, but knew that he was looking to recruit Sensei. So
Right. And it's funny because like we're gonna find out like this entire season, like Chosen just kind of drops like some of these lines or does something where you kind of question like, well, how does he know to do that? Like I kind of wonder like this Guy, like we're assuming that because we saw him what in the first episode with Daniel and he's wearing his like his master gi, right? Like
mhm,
the black one that he's
the
got.
dark one, yeah. Mhm.
Right. So, I kind of joked that he went to Frank Helmer and got like a white gi for
Yeah.
this very exhibition slash like job recruiting thing. What if he saw like the line of senseis and like grabbed the last one, beat him up and like took his gi.
Yeah. Kind of like the way Miyagi took the belt in the first movie. He just like he
Right.
grabbed it out of someone's bag and like
Yeah, it's on brand. It's on
yeah.
brand. So I like to make little references to like Spaceballs when I can. It's very much they just grab that last character and steal his uniform.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. I thought it was also interesting that Tori was late. Why
Um
do you think that is?
I
You
think
seemed
I mean there's certainly a lot of explanations you could get it, but I take it as just an immediate way, like writing wise, it's just like she's not enthusiastic, right? So
okay.
even though she won, she's not like, oh, I'm gonna get there fast. Like she's this is causing her, mental turmoil. She doesn't know what to think or to do. So yeah, take it like maybe she's not as enthusiastic about
Okay.
getting
Okay.
here at this
Yeah, yeah,
point.
yeah.
Anyway.
Right. Because yeah, we're gonna get some, some a bit of an explanation from her part. Like when she's
Hmm.
with Chozen, he
Hmm.
clearly can figure this out. Unless you have another idea about this, but I feel like he takes on, or Chozen rather. I feel like he kind of pairs up with Tori, knowing that she's a champ, because yeah,
Hmm.
that's kind of more attention, that he's gonna get from Terry Silver. Like, oh, let me go see the sensei, that's training my champ here. Let's see what this is
Right.
about, right? More likely that he'll come and see Chozen at that point.
Um, yeah, yeah. I was wondering if was Chosen briefed on Tori, probably, but that's not entirely clear
He
if he
does give
knows.
her a look, right? He gives her a
Yeah,
look when she walks in.
yeah. So like I would think so, but like then did Sam film it? I don't know.
I mean,
But yeah.
Daniel was definitely prepping him, or perhaps
Hmm.
him later, I suppose. But I mean, Amanda, because Amanda was helping her in season 4, so maybe there's a little bit of
Yeah, but
that
Amanda's
too.
not in with this whole like she doesn't know anything about the undercover stuff, so
Oh,
or
right,
per
right, right,
se.
right.
So yeah, so
Good point. Okay, interesting. We cut to, let's
oh
see here,
wait, I
John.
had
Yeah.
one more just note at the beginning. He says, and you could call this insult to injury. He says, "Kreese is not Cobra Kai," and that's like the exact opposite of what Kreese said. I am
Right,
Cobra Kai at the
right,
end of
right,
season
right.
4. So I think Kreese, if he didn't like Silver before, saying Kreese is not Cobra Kai, if he knew Silver said that, he'd be even angrier. He'd break out of jail faster.
Gotcha.
But
Now I'm wondering, like, for someone like Edwin, shout out to AJ Hicks, who I just
Mhm.
recently interviewed. He's been around since season 1. What does someone like Edwin think? To who was under Johnny, and
Mhm.
then Kreese takes over. It's like, no, Johnny's not Cobra Kai material, and Silver's like, or Kreese is locked in jail, and Silver's over here talking about like, no, he's not Cobra Kai. It's like someone like Edwin's got to be confused, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because Edwin
Oh,
at the end of season 2, Kreese was like, Cobra Kai, I found it, it belongs to me, blah blah blah.
yeah.
So yeah, it's been a revolving door of Cobra Kai senseis for sure.
Oh, absolutely. We got a brand new one this season.
Yeah.
Um, Johnny and Robby, they're in Mexico, and Robby just let's see, matched up like his phone and the map, and figures out there's like restaurants and bars in the area.
Hmm.
Johnny's grabbing some food, and they run into a gentleman who's admiring the decals and graffiti on the Eagle Fang van.
Yeah, I think technically the graffiti's not on it yet. Uh, but yeah, he's
Yes, you're
admiring
right.
the decals. Yeah. Um,
Johnny's picking up some Spanish here. I mean,
yeah,
he knows some words, poquito.
yeah, he does better than you would think. Um, I said if Robbie's supposed to be so street smart, which he's been presented as, he would have had a translation app on his phone
Oh
and
yeah.
been able to handle this. So I'm calling this one on Robbie. He should have anticipated this.
That's a good point. I mean, and probably even a missed opportunity for peak Johnny to be using that app like erroneously, like
Erroneously,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, like it's not even Spanish, it's like Portuguese or something, because he can't
yeah.
tell the difference. Well, maybe he does. So, I was tuning into a live stream on Instagram with Sarah, who's the host of Talking Fanfic, and Brianna, and
Mhm.
Brianna mentioned that she in her headspace, that her headcanon, that Rosa has been teaching Johnny some Spanish. But I feel like just being around the Diaz's, it's like he's picking some things up.
Right, like he knows. No, I don't know. Not the bananas, the other one.
Plantains.
Plantains, yeah. Like I forgot, but yeah,
Yeah,
like he
yeah.
knows that. So yeah, he's been picking some up. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So he is definitely learning a little bit, but I do find it interesting here that yeah, he's asking about this Hector to this guy, but the guy's like, no, dude, like I want you to move the van, and for some reason Johnny thinks that he just wants money.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
where'd you get
Like,
that? Like he doesn't say anything about like De Niro or pesos. Like I don't get it.
yeah.
Um, no explanation there. And so yeah, the van gets towed, and I like there's that. I feel like it is like a kind of a minor trope where like something happens, and like your lead will grab something and chuck it at the person like driving away. It's like what good is that gonna do? Like
Yeah.
he wasn't even like running at like full speed either. That was barely half speed, but
Hmm.
it's already hooked
Hmm.
up. I guess what are you gonna do? But I mean, he could have. Like if the window was down the driver's side window, he just grabbed the guy like through the window. Like, stop, give me my van. I don't know. I thought that was an interesting thing though. Why do you think they're setting this up to have the van taken away? Is it just like more bonding between Johnny and Robbie?
Well, I mean, if you just look at it from a story structure, they need to create some obstacles, for Johnny and Robbie, yeah, to bond and overcome, and so that they don't find Miguel too fast.
Right,
So,
right, right. They're too
yeah,
close, so they have to slow him
yeah,
down a little bit too.
yeah. So,
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Where we cut to at Hector's place and Miguel comes down. I feel like this is like morning or something. Like
yeah, you get the impression it's the morning.
yeah, Hector mentioned something and it sounded like Miguel had just gotten up. But he's cooking and this is where he gets to know a little bit more about Miguel
Mhm.
and like the karate that he's done. And so you've mentioned this on your live stream recently as well that Hector, it sounds like he would be kind of privy to like some champions, especially like coming out of California or something like that, right? If that's kind of the dealings he's into.
Yeah, he seems authentic when Miguel says, he won a karate championship in California. He seems like authentic when he's like, "Oh, I'm surprised I haven't heard of you." Like it doesn't. He's not playing that like a joke. At least I don't think so. So, yeah, it
Right.
seems like he's really keeping tabs on like martial arts champions,
I think so.
around the world, apparently. So,
Or
which
and
could
it
come up later, but yeah.
right. If not him, like personally, like somebody that works for him, like
Yeah.
a scout, or something
Hmm.
like that. Yeah. So again, like everything they write is deliberate. So
Hmm.
that's why yeah, I think some of us have our theories about Hector and like
Yeah.
after season five.
What goes
Um,
next? Oh, going
yeah,
back to the note I had last week, because this is where he's like, "Oh, you have an American accent," and the one thing I forgot to mention is I think it gives him an excuse to switch to English, right? For basically the show purposes, because they have a lot of these scenes in English. Like I honestly I don't think they probably would. Normally they would just stick with Spanish in real life, but it's a TV show, so they find a reason to move to English. That's what I think.
yeah, and
Back last week, yeah.
right, we know Miguel understands, and like
Hmm.
he doesn't like always speak Spanish back to like Carmen or
Hmm.
Yaya, so
Hmm.
it's easier on that, but also it's the same thing with like this is jumping way ahead, but like I know some people have criticized why did Chosen speak English while leaving the voicemail to Kumiko? And I want to give a shout out to Brianna for this too, because again, this is that Instagram live that she did, because I think Sarah actually asked, brought that up. I don't think it was her criticism, but that she knows that that's out there. Um, but also like the words like like I should have brought you, right? Like it was a mistake. Like I should have brought you. Those words in like Japanese may not hit as hard, for the English speakers.
Reading the
Um,
subtitles, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's that, but also like I guess it's kind of like a nod to like something uh, Mr. Miyagi says to Yukie in the second movie. And I hadn't thought about that too. I completely forgot about that. So it's kind of like that little nod, where he tells Yukie like something similar to that. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so I do like that because that was also in English. So
Hmm. It was, yeah.
yeah. Let's see here. I feel like we learn any more about Hector too at this point? Oh, he
Um,
has no family. So this is about Luis and Maria.
yeah, they run by, right, yeah.
So
Um,
apparently, because of like the different angles and whatnot, I hear that they had to run back and forth quite a few times just to for continuity.
right. I'm sure they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, Hector does reveal that he's no family and
mhm.
he's been married once, but she left. I feel maybe it's in the group. Somebody might have questioned, like, "Hey, has anybody considered that maybe this still isn't the Hector?" And I didn't reply because it was part of the feedback. But I was thinking, like, they've been spending a lot of time on like the fake Hector. Like I don't see that. And everything's just too coincidental. Like, oh, he's also from Ecuador. We're gonna find out a little bit later here. Um, but what are your thoughts on the idea of having Maria and having Luis as from a former or a previous marriage.
I think it just keeps the relationship dynamics clean. That Miguel doesn't have a half brother. I mean,
Right.
so Luis would technically be a stepbrother. But like I think if he were like a real half brother at least, like I think maybe Miguel may feel like, hey, I want to get to know him or something. But if he is just like a that's a a boy from another marriage, like Miguel may not necessarily feel any family obligation or something, just for those reasons. I think
Right.
it just keeps it clean, for the story wise. So
Right. It's I was kind of like on my first watch. I definitely that was like a question I had, to myself. And I was like, yeah, because like for example, with Johnny, he has to compete with the affections of like Robbie as well. And then so like with Luis not being Hector's like biological son, kind of like what you're saying, but for me to piggyback off of that, Miguel would have him all to himself, right? Like, if things did work out, best case scenario, it's like, okay, well, I'm his only son. I don't have to
mhm.
compete with little Luis, who's the half brother, kind of thing. So,
Right. And if he was like Miguel's brother, half brother, like would Miguel want to leave his brother with a very bad man?
right,
So you go down that thing and you just start entering getting more and more like drama if that were the case. So
right. Okay. Um, let's see here. I want to make sure that I got everything. Um, One thing I did miss a little bit earlier, which another peak Johnny moment, he didn't get his own metaphor, or at least, when Robbie says, "Why don't we just climb up the tree
oh, the
ourselves?"
tree,
Like,
yeah,
what
that's
what
that's
what
a
tree?
good
What are you
one.
talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that
yeah, that was
is.
really good. Um, all right, so reveals no family. Yes, and at this point, he invites Miguel to El Hoyo Verde, which is, I'm assuming, place he owns, right? I don't think he outright says that because he talks about the restaurant business too.
Yeah, I don't, or maybe a part owner, or at least it's a big place for him. He doesn't
Yeah,
actually like explain a whole lot of what it is in the scene. So,
yeah.
um,
Okay. We go back to the dojo. Terry Silver has the new sensei recruits work out with the students, and
mhm,
Chozen tells the Topanga sensei to make like a tree and leave. And
yeah.
so, yeah, this is where he's with Tori.
Mhm.
Um, you mentioned that she's not really quite going all in, and what were some of the reasons that she gave? She wants to kind of like basically back up like the idea of her being the champ. Like this is why like she does karate or something. I'm kind of forgetting.
Well, he says, yeah, I want to defend what's mine. Be strong.
There you go. Yeah, defend what's
Yeah.
mine. And she's referring to the trophy. And so at this point she's like conflicted, right? Like she knows that Silver paid off the ref,
Mhm.
but she's conflicted because like she doesn't feel like she earns it, but wants to defend it. But also her body language, like Chosen picks up on it. She does ask him about like why be a sensei, and he says honor, to which he says that it does mean everything. Um, and this is where Terry Silver walks in as well. We
Mhm.
get the line of Sensei Joe. Shout outs to Joe Piroli, again, who wrote the wrote the episode.
Oh, you think he
And
was he was referencing himself on
I,
that?
I mean, you know what? I did like message him, and I was like, nice, Sensei Joe, and he commented on that, said something like, it was bound to happen, kind of thing, you know, just kind
I
of
will
laughed,
say, yeah,
yeah,
on the Cobra guys, they made a good point. Like for him being undercover, it just helps sell the story. Like, oh, my name is this, but everyone calls me Sensei Joe. So it's like a good cover. Um,
Where did they
for
say
his
that at? Was that their binge
their
and
their
purge?
binge and purge. Yeah,
Oh,
I think that's what.
I feel like I missed that part, but yeah, I did listen to that. I I saw so when that episode dropped, I was like, oh yeah, 2+ hours, and I think they finished up their own like binge talk at like 45 minutes.
40,
Like,
yeah, it was like 40
I
minutes and then
was like, oh, the rest is feedback. Okay. Oh,
mhm,
there we go. Okay, but it was great feedback,
it
right?
was.
Um, so Terry Silver walks over, kind of introduces himself to Sensei Joe,
Mhm.
and he picks up that he also does some Tangsudo. So again, for those that don't follow me on social media, I when some of the or actually maybe you and I mentioned it in the breakdown. Did I mention the Cynthia Rothrock?
Um, she came up
That's her name,
somewhere.
right?
I don't read
Yeah,
there.
I
Yeah.
mentioned I mentioned that she's an eighth degree black belt in Tang Soo Do or
Hmm.
something like that, you know. And I was like, oh, maybe that's why Devin chose to go to Cobra Kai because she thinks that Cynthia is a badass.
Hmm.
Doesn't even get mentioned, but I still like to think that maybe that's a reason, one of the factors into her making that decision. But yeah, Chosen, I think he really does get to Tori at this point, and I do like what he tells her here to basically break free. Once you break free of your troubles, you can face them directly. And I think that really you can see kind of like the wheels spinning right there. And
Yeah.
yeah, helping her make that
You
decision
just you
to
just you just gotta go. You confront Terry. Yeah.
right, right.
Um, Chosen is a good sensei even for Tori when he's undercover. I think she's gaining something from this.
Yeah, I mean he's got to play the part, right? Like
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
can't be he can't be a bad sensei in
Hmm.
front of Terry Silver.
Hmm.
All right,
And he
so
repeated Sato's teaching, like
exactly.
first train mind, then body. And something I wondered, when he hit the dummy and did the Tang Sudo, did he do Tang Sudo intentionally? I guess, um, because
I think
he knows
so.
that's what Silver did. So like he's deliberately trying to show off for Silver. He didn't
Right.
want to do some Miyagi Do move.
No, no, absolutely. I think that was intentional. And again, like, kind of what we were saying about why he chose Tory, right?
Hmm.
Because
Right.
Terry Silver is going to see, okay, well, let's go see what's going on with my champ. And
Hmm.
then once Chosen has his attention, okay, I'm gonna bust out some Sudo
Hmm.
and kind of see where we go from there. Because once Harry like spots that and asks him where he's from, gets to know him, and then like when he
Hmm.
walks off, you see Chosen give him that look, where it's kind of like that slight smile to kind of like, oh, I got you good, or
Hmm.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Robbie and Johnny, they need $1 million to get the van back, which is very expensive. Um, and Robbie says it's actually about $200, but they only have half of that. Yeah, if it was $1 million, like Johnny, I mean, why don't you use what you got, just buy something down there?
Yeah, buy a new car. I
Yeah.
think we get a new car cheaper. It actually, that'd be a funny line if he said that
Well,
too.
but apparently he thinks the conversion rate's the other way, you know?
Yeah, right.
So, because I think was it four? Did he say 400 or 4,000 pesos or
4,000 pesos, I think. Yeah.
yeah? So he's like a million. See, so
Hmm.
the conversion rate the other way for him.
Hmm.
But anyway, yeah, this whole sequence, so they come across the chili eating, and this is Robbie's version of the icebreaker. There's a lot of parallels.
Hmm.
Like Miyagi coming in and putting money on Daniel. Same thing here.
Hmm.
But yeah, your thoughts on the scene?
Well, they didn't come with much money to begin with, so that starts. But yeah, it's definitely just a big parallel. Plays out differently. Uh, but I think like it's so yeah, because the thing is like I'm thinking like because Robbie also I guess when he does like the last one, uh he's doing like the Miyagi Do focus and something, even though he doesn't need it, so he sells the part really well, but it does have so much similarity to Daniel breaking the ice. But
Yeah. No, I don't know if you had any thoughts on this one particular line that Johnny says. Like every time I hear it, it makes me like feel like it's a dirty line where Johnny's like, because Johnny at first he says that he's gonna do it
Mhm.
and tells Robbie like, if I start choking, cover my mouth so that way I don't spit it out. Like that
Mhm.
just sounds dirty. Like is did you
I didn't take that. I have another potentially dirty moment coming
okay.
up,
All
but
right.
yeah, but
I mean, just cover my mouth. Like
mhm.
if you see me choking, cover my mouth so I don't spit it out. I don't know.
Mhm.
It sounded really dirty. So I guess maybe it was just me, kind of wanting something there, I suppose. But yeah, Robbie wants another round. El Dragon.
Mhm.
Um, Did you called this guy Baldy? Like you were really into the scene during
Hmm.
your very first initial watch.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. It's like it because this is a scene we were looking forward to. Yeah, I mean, he is bald, so it's just a funny way to characterize him and get into it. Um, and
Yeah.
it's nice to see this side of Robbie. Um, this sort of like competitive and such, and whoever this that I don't know the actor who plays Baldy, but he does a good job of like just like looking kind of like mean and like the intimidating guy
Yeah,
at
he's
this
like
little.
staring at Robbie, like he's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
chill. He's like, okay, well,
Hmm.
fine, I'll do this, like
Hmm.
because you just got to do it, right? You can't anticipate it. You just rip off the stem and stick it in your mouth, I guess.
Stick it in. Yeah.
All right. So Miguel places a call to Carmen, and he's really upset because this is where he figures out that yeah, Hector has no clue that he exists because he said he's no kids, right?
Hmm.
And I guess that's pretty much it. It was just really brief. He was just calling because he was upset. It's got to be pretty
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
I think like this might have been a chance for Carmen to start saying some of this stuff out. Um, but she kind of just was a little bit, I guess, taken aback from Miguel. Like I think like this would have been a time for Carmen to just start spilling out. This is what he did. This is what's bad. Like if she's worried for him, but she didn't. She just kind of let the moment pass, and then Miguel hung up. But
Right. This was the first time they've spoken, right?
yeah, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure. I think it
So
was.
but also, do you think like the writers also still don't want us to like know exactly what it is? Because like it will kind of
Mhm.
take away from like Hector's moments later as well.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously
So
it's for, you know, story reasons, plot
all
reasons,
right, sure, sure.
the why Carmen doesn't say, no, he did such and such.
Right, right.
You know,
There's a phrase slash expression. I want to give a shout out to a friend of mine whose name is Chris, who's one of the hosts of the Quantum Leap podcast.
mhm,
When they review episodes, they he often says because plot or because story, and that's
yeah,
kind of what this is. Carmen could have said stuff, but because story, we don't want her to say anything yet because we're
right,
gonna find out from the horse's mouth himself. And
right.
yeah, I think it's a little bit because we want to be like Miguel in that moment, kind of finding out
Hmm.
along with him. I think yeah, that's definitely much scarier. But the idea, like, I guess jumping ahead a little bit when she tells Johnny, like he still has no clue. She's very insistent, like on, yeah, I mean Miguel saying these great things about him, but like he has no idea to kind
Hmm.
of still emphasize how bad Hector is.
Hmm.
Because Miguel also mentions like, yo, he's well respected. He owns his own business, so
Hmm.
he sees no bad in Hector at this moment.
Right.
The hottest pepper arrives. Very comical. The guy, it's in a jar. The guy is shaking as if like it's some sort of like animal in society that if he gets loose, it's
Yeah,
gonna
he's
bite
like
his
he's like
fingers.
walking up like a procession. His hands are shaking. It's like it's gonna blow.
Yeah. Robbie eats it. I think Tanner, really sells it. The sequence here, he wins, and the guy spits milk all over them. Very gross.
Yeah, yeah. And so this is where I noted, if you're gonna get splashed in the face with white stuff, I guess it's best for it to be milk. So
Yes. Yes. I need to drink some water after that.
so there you go. I think there's your dirty connection there that
Yeah. Yeah.
they get
Absolutely.
splashed in the face with the white
Yeah.
stuff.
So class is over at Cobra Kai, and Terry Silver decides to invite Sensei Jo over for dinner. This is also where Tori confronts Terry Silver about bribing the ref.
Mhm.
And my note is that I like Tori's demeanor here. Like she made a decision, and she's going to confront this decision. Like or confront Terry rather about the decision that she's made. So she's going all in on that decision. Like her demeanor, the way she's talking to Terry, I don't think she's scared of him.
No, she's definitely not scared.
By
She's
herself.
very determined. I think this is a great scene just in every way. The way it's written, the way it's played, um, everything, because I like, she brings it up. Um, and and Silver is immediately open. He doesn't deny it. Um, he's immediately open. I think if you're ever in that situation, that's a great way to handle it. just just don't deny it, even just be open, because people will detect like the honesty of it, and what Silver says makes a lot of sense.
It
um
does. And like the way he okay, so he admits to yeah, he bribed the ref
mhm,
and it was insurance to to make sure that Cobra Kai is going to win that tournament. But
mhm.
he also says that well, you won. Like LaRusso knows it, everybody knows it. So he's still kind of lying, like
Well, I mean,
yeah,
he's like, you scored 3 points.
yeah,
You got all there. Like, if you couldn't have done it if you weren't skilled.
right, right.
So it's like, yeah.
So a little bit lying there, just because like yeah, so there's a little bit of truth, right? You got to
Mhm.
throw in some truth to your story so it's believable. So yeah, yeah, I paid the ref,
Yeah. And
just to
opening.
make sure. But you won, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I think, like a lot of times people try to like hammer Hall. Like if he had started, what do you mean? Yeah. Well, maybe the ref made a few bad calls, but it was in our favor or something. Like he didn't try to play anything like that. He was very, just straight up. Yeah. I paid him off. It was an insurance policy. Um,
Are you talking about that back room with that wasn't me. The guy with the ponytail, that was another guy. Six
oh,
foot five? No.
oh, you say no. I was talking about the dinner or something, or something else. He was buying equipment for me or something. You know,
No, no, no. I
play it
was paying
off.
him. I was paying him off to make sure that Kreese goes to jail. No, no, that's not it either. Hold on. I'm thinking. Let me get back
But
to you.
there's a really another good part of this scene. It's when Terry also looks to her, and says, I know you and Kreese had a connection. I don't have that connection.
Right.
You and Kreese both really had to struggle for everything in your life, and you connected to that. And there's another thing about like Silver where uh you can almost acknowledge or admire it, that he's a guy who's also admitting, hey, I was born into a really rich family. My dad had a company that I went and worked for, and now I have all this. So he's openly admitting, he started with these advantages. I can't relate to you, in your world. But
Right.
then you can also look at it as, he's also then saying to you, to Tory, like, let me explain also the world of the rich and elite. And in the world of the rich and elite, um rules aren't always that important, and there is bribing and stuff, and we'll fix it so that we come out ahead. And that's a world she doesn't understand, but he does understand, because
Right.
that's the world he's coming from. And he tells her that story about, if someone's kids are hungry, is it wrong for them to steal, to eat? If it's about survival, then
Right.
the rules don't matter anymore. And then he just saw it's about survival. So what are the rules for if you aren't going to survive? So,
Yeah.
and he just
That
brought her into all that.
I mean, that's obviously a metaphor that she can understand herself. And
Right.
like you see her face as well, change from like when she first like stepped up to him too.
Mhm.
It's like, well, like the expression on her face, my reading of it is like, well, yeah, how do I react to that? Because
Right.
he's
And
right.
remember the story from season 2, her mom was stealing food
Right.
so that
Yeah.
they could eat.
Yep.
And maybe Silver didn't know that, but inadvertently said something that was directly true in her life, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Her mom was stealing. And so that's something Silver brings up and is true,
Yeah.
to her. And so she relates to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's same. Like when this happened, I was just like, I don't know what's going on, but I like what he's saying.
Yeah,
Like that was just my
exactly.
first
That's
reaction.
that's
Yeah.
what I said. Like,
Yeah.
if you're open and admit it and stuff, you actually come off as very trustworthy and believable. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are
Yeah.
the rules when you survival's on the line and you can get on his side, and there's a counter example later in the episode I'll mention when we get to it. But
Okay.
yeah, great.
Yeah. Yeah. Great sequence for sure. We got Robbie and Johnny in the car, and this is where we found out that Robbie actually did not eat the chili, and Carmen calls. So this is where we get the Let's Be Water Easter egg.
Yeah,
We'll
it's like the establishing shot. Mhm.
Right, which I'll touch on that in just a sec here. But yeah, so again, Robbie admitted that he was that he cheated, and Johnny calls it badass. But they needed the money, right? That's what needed to be done. That's kind of what's going on here. Like people are just doing what needs to be done because it's about survival. They
Right.
needed the money to get the car back,
Mhm.
go find Miguel, and go back home.
I think it's great writing that you have these scenes back to back,
Yeah,
because since season 4, so many people have made a lot of heyday about Silver cheating or something, and then we hear Silver's explanation for it. It's about survival, and then here we just see Robbie completely cheated. And like, so what should Johnny give the money back?
right.
Turn the car back.
He
Oh,
agrees.
you
It's
cheated. It
badass.
wasn't honorable. This is a great example of like, well, maybe it is important to sort of cheat a little sometimes if it really comes to it. So,
Yeah.
just in back-to-back scenes, very well done.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I mean, obviously the editing too. So I don't know if it was written that way, but
yeah, writing,
a lot goes
editing,
into it.
yeah, however
Yeah.
the craft of cinema, we'll call it.
Uh, yeah. So Carmen calls, and this is where they find out where Miguel is heading. And I had mentioned previously that this is where she's very insistent on Hector is really, really bad.
Right. Yeah, she's bad. I thought it was luck that she like overheard El Hoyo Verde like from the phone, but I'll
Right.
buy it, whatever,
I mean, he's got vaulted ceilings, I'm sure, and the echo is just right.
Yeah.
She,
Yeah.
she picked up on it. Now, so let's be water, the Easter egg here. Yeah, I know some people were asking in the group, it'd be nice to kind of hear the story, but how did you first notice it? Did you see the graffiti? I was like, wait a minute, what was that? And paused it?
No, I missed the graffiti the first time, or even the first two times. In fact, in episode 3, when Johnny's talking about it, I was actually confused. What graffiti? What like
Yeah,
because there's really only this one shot where you see it. And like if you're just not quite paying attention, or you're so in awe of the previous scene, you missed that the van has the graffiti on it. So for the full story on how like, and I have a video on this too. So is he messaged me and he's like, oh, there's an Easter egg to me in season 5. And I was like, oh, really? And he's like, and he was curious because I'm kind of known as a detective, if I could find it. So he's like, could you find it? And I was like, well, and I was starting a rewatch. So I was like, I'll look for it. I'll see. And he's like, well, it's in the first 5 episodes. So I watched the first 5.
okay.
And slowly, because he didn't say what the Easter egg was. So actually, I was thinking like one of his pictures was like in the background somewhere. Like they
Oh
like they
yeah. Oh
they
my
they
God.
put out something, because he didn't say what it was. He just said it was an Easter egg to him.
I
So I
I
didn't
mean,
know. And then I went through 5, and I guess, well, I asked him, is it at Stingray's house? He said no. He said, all right, I'll give you one more hint. It's in episode 2. So then I rewatched episode 2 and found it within 15 minutes, because then I saw it.
it would have been funny if you mentioned like, oh, like it could have been one of his actual like artworks, like because we know
Mhm.
that he's done like announcements for like sports and fights and
Right.
stuff like that.
Hmm.
It easily could have been like one of those like matchup photos or
Right.
pictures,
Yeah.
like at the arena.
Yeah.
So for those that want to hear the story, I actually have a pre-recorded conversation with Mark that kind of gives us a lowdown of how it happened. So at this point, I will go ahead and play that conversation.
All right. And joining me, you guys, is Mark, aka Let's Be Water on social media. So if you guys don't have a Facebook or Instagram and Twitter, you guys are missing out. Just Mark, like first off, thank you for jumping in, for a few minutes here to share this really cool Easter egg. That's a nod to you and the fandom. But you've done such incredible work, for the show, and given us a bunch of eye candy when things weren't available to us, like leading up to all the previous seasons.
You're very welcome. It's great fun to do, and and the response I get just makes it more than worthwhile. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a little bit of backstory for you before we kind of talk about that Easter egg. For those that are not on social media, when did you decide, and what made you get into the fandom and start doing all the artwork?
So it's strange because I never even knew the fandom existed or what a fandom was. This is the really strange thing about it. I made one piece when the show came out in 2018, and as I did for a kind of a lot of things at the time. I never thought anything more of it. It was never the start of anything. But when it kind of really took off was around during the pandemic. I'm a graphic designer. Work kind of just stopped. There was no work coming in, and then suddenly the show arrives on Netflix, and it's there now at your fingertips. No signing up under a new email address for another free trial, and that inspiration was there, and it was a void I was kind of able to fill. With the time I wasn't doing kind of client work. But again, very much for my own entertainment, and I had no idea anybody was looking at it until one day John Hurwitz shared a couple of pieces on his Instagram, and suddenly kind of everything went crazy, and notifications never stopped, and the rest is history.
Yeah, absolutely. You were recently, let's see, on KenCast's epic live stream leading up to the release of season 5. Watch Party has had you on his show as well, so you've kind of been on these channels as well. If anyone wants to check those out and kind of hear more about you and your work, because on those live streams, especially the Watch Party episode, he showcases 10 of your favorite pieces?
Yeah, we did a countdown of kind of 10 of the favorite things that I'd made. But what I will say is what an honor it is to be making my Cobra Kai companion debut, because for those who don't know, and I'm sure like many of your listeners, I didn't know what a fandom was, and it's very much through the companion group that I kind of found you guys first and foremost, and then opened the door to this massive community. So I owe you a huge great debt of gratitude, Peter, and and it's an honor to be finally talking to you on one of these shows.
Yeah, I mean, we'll I've told you before that you have an open invitation, so perhaps you'll be joining me in Watch Party at some point, for funsies. But yeah, no, I appreciate the kind words, but your work speaks for itself. As something you'd say to me, and what I do as well. We're both pretty humble in that aspect, I feel. But yeah, and also for those that know that I attended Paley Fest, you made this incredible piece that I've been sharing on Instagram recently too, just for a little Ask Me Anything. I kind of put that back out there into the ether, hey, yeah, there's this one incredible piece that I'm also a part of, which you've also made some fan ones as well. It included the fans, and I think I'm in a couple of those as well.
Yeah, so I as I say, everybody is so kind and generous to me, and it's not always easy to do. It's a busy life, but whenever I get the opportunity, it makes me really happy to be able to kind of give back to, the people who've supported me and given me this platform in the first place.
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. So, I mean, let's talk about this fun Easter egg in season 5, episode 2. First off, can you explain what the actual Easter egg is before we get into how it got there?
Yeah, sure. And it is a very subtle one. It's a very subtle one. So, people who've seen the episode will remember that Johnny's car is towed whilst he and Robby are looking for Miguel in Mexico. And it's very much kind of the setup to a punchline later on in the episode, but you get a very brief glimpse of the car as it's driving past, and it's been kind of graffitied presumably whilst in the in the impound lot. So kind of that's where you can find the Easter egg. But what's great about it is it sets up the gag later when he returns home and is surprised to learn from Carmen that it's illegal to spray paint people's property, which is classic Johnny, really.
Yeah, peak Johnny is what we've been calling him. Yeah. So, and the Spanish, what is it? Se agua?
Yeah. So again, very difficult. It's a quick glance, but it on the side of it, it says se agua. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but that is, it's translated as be water.
Yeah, which is your handle, and
Indeed.
it's the masked wrestler, right? Is that what that?
Yeah. So I mean, it's really interesting. So it kind of when I was approached to potentially produce something that they could use on the side of the vehicle, there wasn't much by way of a brief. It was, as I say, it was kind of the setup to a punchline. So I'm not sure how important it was or how much it mattered. Really, it was just kind of they're throwing me a bone, for which I really appreciated. But me being me, I wanted to get it right. I wanted to do it justice. So I'm thinking, well, okay, this has happened in Mexico, so I'd like to include something that is kind of identifiable as linked to kind of Mexico and Mexican culture. So kind of the idea of the luchador mask was something that you'd kind of see and recognize as very relevant to where this had happened.
Yeah, it actually makes a lot of sense. And after watching season 5 and seeing the storyline with like Hector and all of that, so it makes perfect sense. And so you mentioned being approached. How and who approached you about it?
So, yeah, I mean, again, I'm just very, very, very fortunate. So I had the opportunity again during the pandemic when things were very slow to do a piece of work for Patrick Hogan, who some listeners may know is the lead sound engineer on Cobra Kai. He'd seen a lot of my fan art, it liked what I did, and very kindly approached me to, about putting together a poster for an independent short film that he'd made called Killing Time, which I've seen and is outstanding and has been nominated for dozens of awards. So well worth everybody seeking out. But of course, I've done this piece of work for Patrick, and, doing fan art is one thing because I don't have to answer to anybody. Doing something for a client is very, very different. There's a set of expectations that need to be met. And, fortunately, I'd done that for Patrick. And so when the discussion of this had come around and the need for some artwork to kind of apply to the Eagle van, Patrick was very kind enough to put in a word for me, and I had an email from one of the show's producers to sort of ask whether I'd be interested in doing it, which took me about half a second to decide. Of course, what a massive honor. But as I say, it was interesting because the way the conversation went from there, kind of, the start of any project is, well, what exactly is it you need? What have you got in mind? What, is there any, and there kind of wasn't really a plan for it. So this idea of kind of it being a tribute to me kind of wasn't necessarily the idea of the showrunners. It was me sort of saying, okay, well, hold on a minute, what if I was the guy that tagged the vehicle? How about this? So, I put this design forward with the kind of Se Agua in the kind of, in the Mexican font with the, with the luchador mask. And honestly, I expected to have it kicked straight back to me. That's a bit too on the nose. We see what you've done here, and not quite what we're looking for. But actually, as I'm led to believe that, the guys found it really, really funny, and, and we're happy to run with it straight away. So it was kind of, half them being kind enough to reach out and give me a shot in the first place, and half me sort of, taking a chance to say, well, okay, what can I get away with?
Yeah, no, I think you say that it's a little, or you thought that maybe it was a little too on the nose, but I think like if they are reaching out, like that's kind of exactly what they want, right? Like, yeah, I mean, this is going to be a nod to you, like, because
maybe.
Yeah,
I mean, you hit the nail on the head earlier. Pete, I'm way too humble to think that might have been the case, but I put it through when I sent it off. It was firmly with my tongue in cheek, never expecting for a minute that they might kind of go, yeah, that'll do. So when I had the response that they'd given it the green light, I mean, it was just an amazing feeling. Yeah,
I'm just like, man, if I had that opportunity, what would I do? I'm just like, hey, you guys, like I keep joking about making me like a postal consultant. Why don't you just make me like the mailman from part 2? Where
exactly.
I'm delivering
the waiter from the Olive Garden. That's how he got his shot. So anything,
because he's an actual server. Like exactly. I can be delivering invitations to Sakai Takai. Like it just makes sense.
There you go.
It writes itself. So what else could you tell us about it? Yeah, so shout out to Patrick Hogan. He does
Indeed.
follow me on Facebook and social media and on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very familiar with who he is. And that was pretty much it. You didn't hear anything for some time, and then boom, season 5 premieres, and there it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the thing. So, I mean, say thank you to Patrick, because he put in a good word for me. But I must also say thank you, of course, to John, Josh, and Hayden for agreeing to that in the first place. But also to Mallory Yund, who was the producer that I dealt with, and Kyle at the VFX company who does the digital effects for the show, because of course, as incredible an opportunity as it was also immensely nerve-wracking. As I say, putting stuff together for my own entertainment. Who cares if anyone else likes it or not, right? I've got the kind of weight of the world on my shoulders, making sure that I do this justice, because I care a lot about these people. And they were so incredibly kind and patient with me. This isn't something I've ever done before, with this kind of type of profile. So I was really, really nervous about it, but they were incredibly kind, incredibly patient. They answered 1,000,001 questions from me. I think I massively overthought the whole thing, but it was just because it was so important to me to get it right. So really, really important to say thank you to those guys. But yeah, as you touched upon, the work went in, and although the kind of artwork had been agreed in principle, you never know how these things are going to go. Does that shot get cut because the running time's too long? Does they like the artwork, but actually when they try and apply it in post, it doesn't work? I mean, you name it, I doubted it, right? I gave myself every reason to suspect that it would not appear, and so it wasn't until I got to see the episode for myself and saw that car kind of drive by that that it felt real. The stats came out of 105 million hours watched or something in the first few days. I think a lot of that was me just rewinding that moment just to double check that that it had actually happened.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. That's amazing.
Yeah, Mallory herself was an Easter egg in, was it season 2? Season 2 or 3. Yeah, she was a friend request.
Oh, she was a friend request of Johnny's, right? Yes,
suggested. I think friend suggested. I think.
Yeah.
On Facebook. Yeah. So that's amazing. Yeah. Well, Mark, thank you for sharing. Your story on the pod here, and I hope that if people hadn't already watched Watch Party's video about it, then they can hear this and go back and check it out. It's the blue graffiti. It is Johnny driving from right to left on the screen. Blink and you miss it. I mean, I don't want to say blink and you miss it. It's a good second or two, but it's quick. But you see it.
But you know what? I kind of love it more. Do you know what I mean? Because if we weren't having this conversation, it's my little thing. Do you know what I mean? I know it's there. And that's, and that's more than enough for me.
Well, it should be shared, and people should hear about it, because like you put in so much work into your work, and how many pieces do you have? Like 3,000 pieces? Or?
Yeah, I think it's very close to 200 now. But you make a really important point, Peter. And if I can say one last thing on it, in that you're absolutely right. It's great for me, but it is very much a shared accomplishment, because it's only because people like what I do and have shared what I do and have, and tagged the cast and crew in what I've done to make sure they've seen it. This is everybody's accomplishment, because without all of that going on, none of these guys know who I am in the first place. So, I would say a thank you to you, for introducing me to this community who's welcomed me with such open arms and gone to bat for me, because that's how this came about.
And that is it. I want to thank Mark for giving us a few moments to kind of shed some light on that really fun Easter egg. And if you guys are like on social media, you guys will have seen so much of his work. I mean, in that clip, he talks about how what do you say, like just over 200
200 kind of, pieces. Yeah,
he's done
big
so
ones,
much.
small ones. Yeah, he's done a lot.
And for people too, like content creators are reaching out, hey, can you help me out with a banner? Can you help out with a new logo? And he's more than willing to help out. So I think this was definitely well deserved.
Yeah, very and great for the the people on the show and such, to include him in that. And yeah, he had told me, like, I remember he said like he made this and didn't quite know what it was for. Like he just knew, it was something in the show. So it's a fun Easter egg. It's a great little nod to
Yeah,
him.
so there we go. Check out Watch Party's video, about catching it and
Mhm.
a little bit there, and now the podcast listeners, and I guess once this goes on YouTube, you guys will hear Mark's words himself of how it all happened. So,
Mhm.
hope you guys enjoyed that. So let's see here. Miguel and Hector. So yeah, they're at the El Hoyo Verde. Hector
Mhm.
introduces people to Miguel, and this is where we find out that he made a lot of money back in the day.
Mhm.
And he says something about like putting the past away. I don't know what that's in reference to. That's just my note.
Um, yeah, that was them like
Toasting?
talking. Yeah, or
Was
well,
the
no,
toast?
talking to like, yeah, I think it was the toast. You got to put the past away. I made a lot of money back in the day, but moving on. So I think like it's giving the impression that maybe he was a very bad man, but he's like moved on or something. At least it seems to imply that. It's kind of like but it is like the first hint of maybe his past or something.
Right. And Vicente, he's being introduced here, and we're gonna find out that he's like the headliner,
Hmm.
right? And so when Johnny runs into him later, we know that this guy is not just like a fighter; he's like the fighter of the evening.
Yeah,
Um,
and this is, I mean, you could call it an Easter egg. Or Vicente is the first. He's played by a man named Eric Anders, who's the first UFC MMA fighter. He's a real professional fighter, sort of like guest starring in the show.
yeah,
So yeah, that's a real UFC fighter. He's got some nice wins and such. But yeah, so that's kind of like and there will be some more later this season. But so that's a
right.
nice little way to bring someone like that in.
And also it's in Spanish here, so if those that don't really care to read, what you're missing out is that Hector also tells him, second round max, right? So he's
Hmm.
I don't know if he's like put money on the fight, like I guess you can kind of maybe make that connection, but
Hmm.
he's telling him like, hey, like you're the headliner, you're that badass. I expect you to know, to not go any further than 2 rounds. Do you think he's got money on this?
Um, I don't know. Like, did he have money already? Because I don't think he bet while they're there. But he does seem to be joking around with him because he also says like Miguel's going to take your place or
Right,
something.
right. Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't have like had to have done it there. Obviously, like the fights are scheduled and stuff like that.
mhm,
This could have been like something like way before. I just thought it was kind of choice, for him to kind of mention like, hey, second round.
mhm,
Max.
mhm,
Yeah, and this is where we also find out that Hector reveals that his business, it's not just a restaurant. There's he's made friends in high places. What else do we find out? So much. And maybe a little bit later too is also where we find out even more.
right.
Um, so we cut back to Daniel with Chozen, and they're discussing the plan of Chozen going to go see Terry Silver. I do like
Mhm.
how Daniel decided to try to put him in one of his own blazers.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I get well. Chozen was
Chosen only
wearing.
has like Hawaiian shirts, keys, and like one black badass from the end of season 4.
That's what I was about to say. Like, what's wrong with that one? But I guess that doesn't look like somebody that's about to retire. And it's like, oh, I saw an advertisement kind of thing. I don't
Hmm.
know, but yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's a fun sequence there.
Hmm.
Um, and this is where Chosen tells like the story of his uncle Sato, and also we like cut to like Tori looking at that trophy for a second.
Hmm.
But yeah, Chosen goes to their house. They discuss the job um, and discuss Kreese, Kim Sun Young, and others that when Chosen asked Terry Silver about like who's his legacy, or how did he ask it, like who does he fight for, or the legacy that he fights for. So a lot is coming out from the sequence. Um, Chosen does notice that Daniel's nervous, and you see that Chosen's calm. So very contrasting in their physical appearance here.
Hmm. Yeah, and he's talking about cowardness a lot in that like little voiceover or something, and just I guess thinking back to his uncle, but um I guess it's showing us how far he's come.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
he admits that he wasn't ready to learn, right? When Sato tried teaching him about honor.
Mhm.
So I do wonder if that like ties into that to the pillow sequence in the cold open.
Mhm.
But there is this voiceover as like Chosen is arriving to the house, like he's walking up to the
Mhm.
door and all that stuff. And
Mhm.
there's this established shot of like very specifically, Chosen looks up at the surveillance. I think I thought that that was going to come back at some point. Like, oh, there's that surveillance, it's a few things. I feel like, oh, that's to let us know that, okay, yeah, Terry Silver has always got cameras going on, which is going to
Mhm.
play a part in the finale. But also, I think that also speaks to like Chosen's kind of like awareness, when he's kind of like doing recon or whatever, around a perimeter kind of thing, because that will also kind of come back later. It's kind of like a throwaway line in like in a later scene or a later episode. And I think this is also just kind of like chosen to be knowing things. Like he notices things, very
Yeah.
astute. Yeah, I feel a
Yeah.
detective like you, some would say.
Yeah, and I think it's mostly just establishing that Silver has the security everywhere at the dojo and in his home. Um,
Yeah.
so
And Chosen is definitely telling Terry Silver everything that he wants to hear, right? All the good stuff. So
mm,
there's definitely some history kind of going on here. Uh, Chosen mentions that rivalries die slow in Japan. Do you think he's referring to someone specifically? Like
um
I was kind of wondering if it was like, kind of like Sato, or like Sato and Miyagi, or something like that, or
I
like
th-
just in
no, I
general, I
think
guess.
it's Daniel in that it took him a long time to come to terms with what happened to Karate Kid 2 and
Okay, yeah,
kind of
because
face
we
his
get a
own
flashback,
demons yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And coincidentally, Terry Silver talks about his rival too in
Yeah.
the dojo, who happens to be this guy named LaRusso.
Same guy, wouldn't you believe it?
Yeah, who would have thunk? Uh, and I like this last scene too. Again, I feel words are deliberate, but Terry Silver tells him, grab your drink. I want to show you something, which
Mhm.
is, something that Chosen says. And I feel that was one of my prop bets, which we all got to get back together and kind of figure it out because there's definitely some Lou Russo's drinking in here in season
Mhm.
five. That was one of the prop
Yeah.
bets there.
Mhm.
Any other notes of you for this scene?
Oh, he mentions his father.
Yeah.
Yeah, that his father died of cowardness, and that's the thing. What does that mean? Is I assume he's telling the truth. And like, how does Chosen feel about that? What do you think about Chosen? It's just saying that, his father, he was raised by his uncle. His dad died when he was young. He died of cowardness. Why
Oh,
would Chosen say that? Yeah.
yeah, I wonder if he actually means that literally too. Like his father was a coward, like he was faced with something and couldn't stand up for himself or couldn't stand up for his
Mhm.
family, right? Because it's not just his father that's not around. Like I
Mhm.
feel we still don't, I don't know if we know for sure yet, but I've always kind of thought that Sato is Chosen's mom's brother, and
That
so
could be,
like,
yeah. Mhm.
yeah, because like, he's Taguchi, and we don't even know for sure like Sato is a Taguchi. We don't
Mhm.
know. Like I know it
Yeah.
says that on Wikipedia, but where did they get that?
Yeah, well,
It's just
Wikipedia is
yeah,
not informative.
right. So it's kind of one of those things, and like like I don't want to say like, oh, like for example, like the way he talks to Chosen, that could just be the way he talks to kids. But I do
Mhm.
wonder like if it was like, gosh, actually this almost kind of like kind of goes against what I was saying because if this is probably just how Sato speaks to people, even if it's a little child. Because I was thinking, well, if it's his sister's kid, maybe he'd be a little bit nicer. But if it was Gosh, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. I don't know if you were kind of seeing, but
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think it's
it's just a treatment.
possible? Like, yeah, do you think it's possible they're trying to go back and fill in Karate Kid 2 a little bit? Like maybe the reason Chosen was the way he was back then is he was trying to prove he's not coward, so to speak, and just like over aggressive then, and
Right,
putting,
overcompensate, right?
yeah,
Like, yeah, no,
overcompensating.
always. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, that's what they do, right? With the
Mhm.
flashbacks, with the actually, I think that's what it usually is with flashbacks and also dialogue referencing those previous movies, Terry Silver
Mhm.
and the Coke. Um,
Mhm.
seeing this, well, even the stuff with like Young Kreese and Young Silver, but yeah, there's a reason that
Mhm.
we're being shown Sato and Chosen kind of early on. He's a
Mhm.
white belt, training with
Mhm.
like adult American soldiers. And so the whole cowardice with his father, there's he I think he means it in a literal sense. Like his if his dad wasn't such a coward, he'd still be alive because of something. And maybe this is why he decided to take up karate with his uncle Sato,
Mhm.
because why is he the only child with the American soldiers?
Yeah.
I know that's who Sato teaches, but like, it was, yeah, I mean,
Sato's like,
a
come
lot of
on, you're
questions.
you're you're in the class too, Chosen.
Yeah, yeah. No, nobody else is going to be worthy, right? Like
Right.
you're my nephew. I'm going to teach you.
Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
So I can see that too. Um, so let's see. Johnny and Robbie arrive at El Hoyo Verde, and they sneak in, which is kind of interesting. And they start asking around for Hector, the Salazar. So like you sneak in and immediately you start throwing the name around. Like Robbie already told you earlier, like if this guy is that dangerous, you don't want to just be throwing his name around willy-nilly. But I do like how like Hector gets the call and immediately about the feds, right? Like Amy pointed it out in her synopsis, like, oh, you didn't read the back of that shirt, female body inspector. Um,
I would speculate maybe that these people here don't read English.
okay, that's fair.
So but they can recognize FBI. That's the sort of conclusion I gave myself, like in my head, that they can recognize FBI, but yeah, they
Well,
maybe they don't actually read English, so the back they didn't know what it meant.
yeah, I believe one of the gentlemen like that Johnny first sees even says like no English or something like that, right? Like
Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah,
even mention that, So
yeah.
yeah, definitely possible for sure. And I just think like this whole sequence is like it gets intense. Like Hector, like he's on the phone talking about like the feds have no jurisdiction, So like something like this has possibly happened before that that Hector knows this, like knows this information, no jurisdiction.
Well,
Um,
that would be straightforward. The FBI doesn't have
okay, oh
jurisdiction
that's true.
in
Yeah, yeah,
Mexico, but
right. Federale,
yeah.
right, or something. Uh, yeah. So I thought this was so tense on my initial. I actually every time I watch it, it's still intense. Like the music, the kind of like you know the uh the setting, right? There's music and Miguel's by himself, and this is
Mhm.
where we see like Hector kind of switch. He immediately thinks that like Miguel's in on this. Like, who are you on the phone with? Give me your phone. And
Mhm.
just the way it's written too is like I know what you said. Like he cuts off Miguel too. Like no, like I heard what you said. You're not hearing me. Give me your phone. And some of the observations I made on Miguel's phone, he made calls to Mitch. So he calls him Mitch, not penis breath. Devin Lee's the only one that has a last name. He still has Hawk saved as Hawk, Chris, and also golf and stuff for reasons. Like I just thought it was kind of funny just to kind of see like who's in his call log.
Yeah, that's I didn't even check that, but yeah, I love the instant switch on Hector. Is a really a great moment. Because you can see like he has this other life. He's so friendly and out and about and everything, and then he gets one sort of call, oh, FBI's here, and he switches completely. He's a completely different person. He starts freaking out or something. And like what I said is he asks who were you on the phone with earlier, and Miguel actually hesitates. My mom, and then he's asking more, and then Miguel's like lying and stuff. But like that's what I said earlier about Terry Silver, is just be open, just immediately. if Miguel was just immediately, my mom, what's up? Like, and then more open about everything, I think it would have Hector would have taken it easier. Um,
Yeah,
but like Miguel's like literally hesitating about like his mom talking to his mom.
well, well, yeah, absolutely, because like he was on the phone with her earlier talking about
Hmm.
like, no, he's good, and now like
Hmm.
this guy switches. Now he's kind of like, oh God, now I'm scared. Like, do I tell him
Hmm.
the truth? Because
Hmm.
he's already been dishonest about who he really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's see. We cut to Hector spots the fence with Miguel. Okay,
Oh,
yeah.
by the
So
way,
this,
I
yeah, yeah.
those FBI shirts work so well. That one pit stop that Johnny made where he got all that in one stop is like the most successful like roadside pit stop you've ever seen. He got the chilies, he got the shirts, he got everything.
Isn't there even like an image of a woman on the back, or is it just text? I kind of forget.
Um yeah, you know what? It may have a woman. No, I
Yeah,
gotta remember. Um
yeah, but yeah, I guess it does, But
yeah,
like, yeah, as long as Johnny doesn't turn his back to people, they won't see it. It'll be all right.
let's see. Yeah.
I mean, because some of those fighters, like when they first enter, I mean, they're focused, right? They're
Hmm.
like they got the game face on, they're ready.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I totally get. So yeah, Hector spots the feds and bounces with Miguel. Johnny
Hmm.
sees Miguel cross away, but runs into some trouble named Vicente. And this is where I love this too. It kind of like the progression of like the announcer, like, oh,
Yeah.
crazy white man, oh, he
Yeah.
kicks faster like lightning, white lightning.
White
So,
lightning, yeah.
yeah,
The
the wolf
progression,
versus
yeah.
white lightning. Yeah, I love that. So hilarious.
And I love when he shouts karate, it's karate versus MMA. Because
Yeah.
I thought that was like when a long time ago I thought a title I kept thinking karate versus ninjas. So when he says
Uh,
karate versus MMA, it reminds me of something I said once.
yeah, not far off.
Yeah.
Let's see. Terry and Chozen, they're in the weapons room here, and
Mhm.
Chozen eyes a katana, and Terry gives some of its backstory. So, have you looked up on anything about like the battle of the what was it? Gosh,
Oh, the one he mentions?
yeah, Kawana
I have
Kojima.
not. No.
Okay, so I actually listened to a few podcasts on these battles. So there's five battles, and in this sequence, I don't have like notes in front of me. I feel I might even do like a bonus episode. I reached out to a YouTuber who actually has like two episodes, kind of going over these battles. The first episode is the battles 1 through 3, and the second episode was like three, 4, and 5, and basically the battles, the feud is very kind of parallels basically what's going on with like Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do,
Mm.
and I still have not yet quite, because I'm just listening, right? I'm not even looking at the graphics on the thing because I'm
Mm.
I'm listening to it and working, and so I haven't really figured out, oh, which of these warriors, or I want to use the right words here. I think I have.
I mean, they were
Just
samurai, right?
yeah, they were samurai, but kind of like the leaders of each side kind of thing. Like I
Mhm.
haven't figured out which is which, but there's like different clans and whatnot. And the one that Terry Silver mentions, and excuse my mispronunciation, but the Yusugi Kenshin,
Mhm.
that's whose sword it is. Like he was uh I guess he was known as like the dragon of Ichigo or something. But either way, it's like these guys, like in between each battle, there's years. Like I think between 3 and 4 was like 11 years, and then I think between 4 and 5 was like 2 years. But they just kept on feuding, and there's talks about like their maneuvers in the war. It's just like everything I was hearing, I was just like, that sounds like season 5 of Cobra Kai, and
Mhm.
I'm just trying to figure out like, well, which one is freaking like Terry Silver, and like is one of those chosen, or is it Daniel? But yeah, it very much lines up with what we will see, yeah, throughout the entire show. But the I think the fifth battle actually is kind of like nobody really wins. I think the fourth battle was like the bloodiest, and like the most death and all that. But the fifth one, there's more of like a respect, kind of like I don't want to say stalemate because I don't think that was the word that the host used. But it was a really interesting listen if you guys are interested in on the battle that Terry Silver brings up. But
Mm.
if I can get someone that's more of like a subject matter expert, I would definitely like to do a bonus episode, kind of going over it, and maybe this person, if they're even familiar with the Cobra Kai, would definitely be able to be like, oh no, yeah, this the Kenshin is this guy, and Masatora is this guy, or there's a lot of names thrown in there. But
Mhm.
very very interesting that they brought these specific battles, because again, like how often does Terry and Daniel run into each other, and
Mhm.
how many times is Chozen gonna come across, you know, um, Terry Silver. So yeah, a lot of parallels. So it was very interesting that they brought up the Battle of I just had it, Kawana Kojima. So yep,
Mhm.
look those up. Look that up for those that are like history buffs. Very interesting stuff there. But yeah, he eyes the samurai sword, and Terry gives a story, and he's not even sure if it's real, right? He said this is just what the person told me.
Auction house said,
The
yeah.
auction house, yeah. And so Cho's basically like cut the BS. What do you want? You didn't ask me here to be like a sensei. What's up?
He did. He wants a partner. So I like how Chosen says, stories, words, belief in the story is valuable. That always feels to me like a meta thing that the writers are throwing in just to sort of
Oh, sure.
play themselves up. Um,
But yeah, he
and
Terry was a right hand man, right? That he can
mhm,
confide in.
right. Yeah. So yeah, he wants a right hand man. Um, yeah, this is where Silver says he has no children. His legacy is Cobra Kai. So, and he truly believes in it. So that's we're getting like Terry's motivation here for why he's doing what he's doing is, this is what he feels will be his legacy.
Right. He wants
So
to be synonymous with like what was it, Starbucks and
Starbucks and
coffee.
coffee, yeah, not
Yeah.
McDonald's and hamburgers, you know,
Right.
not Baskin Robbins and ice cream. It's Starbucks and coffee, which I sat there wondering if Terry Silver goes to Starbucks like himself, or because he has a guy, he's got someone who makes coffee for him, but maybe
Yeah, I
just enough that
maybe he's using like a analogy that like he thinks Chosen would understand, because like I feel Terry Silver is definitely above like a Starbucks, right?
yeah.
Yeah. But
But it's like just yuppie enough he could do it, which is why like he doesn't say McDonald's and hamburgers because that would be too low class for him. So like
right,
Starbucks
right.
is like the bottom, the lowest like level he would be at.
Yeah, I like that. There's a point where I feel like I alluded to this earlier where Chosen kind of asked him like, well, whose legacy do you fight for? Or I'm forgetting the exact wording. I wish I wrote that specific thing down, but I thought it was interesting because like, a lot of us I feel we're kind of questioning, did he ever even train under Kim Sung Young? Which he says here, yeah, this is my master and some others
And
is
others,
what he
yeah,
said.
that was in the
Yeah, and
previous
others.
scene. My master is Kim Sun Young, among others. Yes, is how he
Yeah.
worded. I don't know if he meant Turner there or who, but yeah,
Ooh, I didn't even think about that.
yeah,
Hmm, that's
because that
interesting.
was the first thing that popped in my head is because technically Turner was his first teacher. So
And do you think that he could possibly even include Kreese in that?
yeah, possibly.
Because
Um,
Kreese continues on, right, with the whole
right,
Cobra Kai, and
right.
and we know that Terry Silver is going to run Dynatox for some time, but
Hmm.
continue practicing as well.
Hmm.
But not like side by side with John Kreese. I don't know. It is very interesting. So yeah, yeah. It's very interesting indeed. Um, So this is where Chosen, yeah, basically says Yosh, yeah, he will accept the job here as being the right hand man, and they
Hmm.
toast to righting wrongs in the past and coming back on top. So I think we can figure out what he means by that there. And Chosen says Kari, which
Sorry.
Terry Silver gives a look of like, oh, So what were your thoughts when you first saw this sequence of the
Um,
Chosen
Well,
kind of slipping
obviously,
here.
I didn't pick up on the wrong toast. Chosen said, but it looks like the deal is made now, and Chosen is now completely on the inside. So, I think like unless you're as um clever as Silver and would pick up on that, yeah. I'm actually curious if there's anyone who did pick up on that, who knows the difference between Okinawan saluted versus Kyoto. But
Right, right. Yeah, I'm sure some did. And for me, I was just like, okay, that's the wrong word, but I didn't know that. Oh, he said like the Okinawan version.
mhm.
And you may have seen like my tweets or whatnot, but I was just like, oh man, this reminded me of Inglorious Bastards.
Oh, I
You
don't what happened in that one.
did you
Where
see that movie at
I
all?
did, but in fact, I
Okay,
was thinking about it
so
recently. But
yeah, yeah. Michael Fassbender's character, he infiltrates like
mhm.
the Nazis, I believe it was, and
Mhm.
they're in the bar, and he says, "Oh, three glasses," but he holds like the wrong three
Oh,
fingers up.
the way he holds his fingers up, yeah,
Yeah,
because in Europe they do it differently than
correct.
Americans.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. And I don't remember if Fassbender immediately knew that he did it wrong, but he does kind of give a look, kind of like, "Oh, geez, where to go? Where do we go from here?" Because like the other officer immediately looks at his fingers and his face drops, like, "Okay, all right, this guy is not who he says he is." So
Mhm.
it plays out very similarly, and they're both just as intense.
Yeah, very good. Mhm. You know what? The scene is more fun rewatching it now that you know that, because now you can really get the suspense or something. I actually enjoy rewatching the scene.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I don't even know how many times I've like listened to it while I'm working and watching it.
Mhm.
Like I do like I don't know how long the iPhone's been doing this, but like I can put on Netflix and put my phone to sleep, but still listen to the audio.
Mhm.
So that's what I like to do, so I can hear and not get distracted what's on screen. Like I can actually just listen straight up to the words.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, just like I know we're only on the second episode here, and I feel bad on social media because like all I tweet and post about is Chosen. But like, but if you guys know me, like, what do you expect? But I feel bad because like Thomas Ian Griffith is like killing it as Terry Silver
Oh, he
as
is.
well.
Mhm.
Like you just the facial reactions. We talked about that sequence between like Terry Silver and Tori. And he's got
Right.
so
Mhm.
much more, and he's got more coming up in this episode as well.
Mhm.
That he does great in. Who he can flip just as quick as Hector. But speaking of Hector, him and Miguel, they arrive at the restaurant, and Miguel thinks that he should take him home. Probably got drunk by this point. I'm surprised Miguel isn't for having like what was it, tequila or something with him earlier.
Yeah, but I guess
Uh,
Miguel just had the one shot, but I think
that's
Hector's been
fair.
drinking. Yeah.
That's fair. Uh, Miguel even offers to drive him home. And this is where we definitely get some more backstory. And this is probably my favorite Hector sequence, just because I think Luis Roberto Guzman, who plays Hector, is just killing it.
Phenomenal.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's so
It's
good.
such an amazing. Oh, he really just knocks it out of the park. Um, yeah. So yeah, it's really this whole scene. It's well written and so well performed.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Like Hector talks about like they're having to lay low there for like a few days, and I think he was like, oh gosh, maybe a couple weeks or something like that. And then
Yeah, I'm gonna lay low.
Miguel's
Mhm.
like, well, what about Maria and Luis? And this is where he starts to find out more about like where Hector is with everything.
Mhm.
Like he shares the story about the Icarus, which I feel like a lot of us are kind of familiar with. Like
Mhm.
flying too close to the sun, and
Mhm.
your wings will burn. But Hector says that his dad has told him this story, and that he uses a few analogies. And I was thinking, I was like, man, this is kind of like not too dissimilar from like, not bad. There's no bad student, there's bad teacher.
Mhm.
Like Hector was a good kid, but it was his dad that gave him kind of like bad advice. But we kind of find out like, oh, this is where his paranoia comes from because like I guess in Ecuador he was really successful at what he was doing, but Carmen did not like it, and I guess, and this is to my surprise, he even talks about Yaya, like who apparently felt like even more bad about what he was doing than Carmen did.
Yeah,
Because
he says, it apparently referring to Carmen and Rosa, the way it's written, they tried to fuck with me, a successful man. Because, and then he talks about, so it seems like Carmen and Yaya tried to stop him,
right.
from what he's saying. Yeah. Which
Yeah.
is something we didn't know. And I don't know if they're going to go into that more later or what, but,
Yeah. Because now it's like, it's a little, I'm just like, man, with like in episode 408, party time.
mhm.
And just right before the prom, Yaya makes that comment, like, he's starting to look like his father, but like the face, that Rosa makes, like, it doesn't really quite match up like what we're hearing from Hector's point of view. But again, it's like he said, she said, they're kind of remembering things differently.
Mhm.
Like me, I don't know. It's a tough one, but yeah, obviously since that is, Miguel's mom and grandmother, he does not like what he's hearing, right? That kind of even adds to it too. Not only is
That's
this
how
guy
that
bad,
yeah,
yeah,
that's how the audience, we know he's a bad guy when he's talking bad about Carmen and Rosa.
and Yaya, we all love
Yeah,
Yaya. Like,
yeah,
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 you're speaking bad about Yaya. That's our Yaya
yeah,
too, dude.
yeah.
So we know you're bad.
Yeah.
Did you anything else that you liked about his backstory? Like, one of my favorite moments is like, he God, what does he say? He's like, that is the price of doing business, or no, the cost. He goes, that is the cost of doing business. That is the cost. Like, he repeats it. It's just the way he delivers it. I just think it's really really good. Like, one of my favorite like dialogues of the season.
Yeah, and there's so much like he's saying, well, like even going back to the Icarus story, the first thing is he mentions his dad, which would be Miguel's grandfather. But Miguel
Right.
doesn't ask anything, and then he talks about Icarus, and the son is the government, the son is women. So it's like it's this different side, like, oh, you get the government's gonna screw you over, women are gonna screw you over. And you see this like this sort of uh jaded, almost like on edge guy that comes out when he's drunk and thinks he's got to be on the run. The look out for the government, look out for the women. And he talks about those corrupt assholes or whatever in Ecuador, and he's like referring to the government, but we can kind of gather from that he's calling them corrupt, but probably they were just following the law or whatever,
Yeah.
and
Right.
he was actually the corrupt one. So that's kind of what's interesting about the whole thing too. He's complaining about the government people because they were trying to stop him, a successful businessman, but really he was the corrupt one.
I don't think I have any other notes, but basically he's all in on himself. Like, this is
Yeah.
about him, his business, and his money.
And yeah, one other thing is he says to Miguel, do you know I regret it? And nothing. And it's kind of an interesting moment. Because would he regret it if he knew he had a son? Um, that's a question we don't really know. He doesn't regret Carmen leaving, so we know that. So he doesn't have any regrets that Carmen left and is out of his life. He never had a family. He doesn't care. But would he change his mind if he knew he had a son here that he never knew?
Just
Um,
kind of compare him to like Terry Silver, right? Who also
mhm,
didn't have a family,
mhm.
and so if Hector found out that he did have a son, does that change things up? Like all his money, his business, like he has somebody to leave that to when he dies. Miguel would be
Yeah.
his legacy.
Mhm.
So that's just very interesting. I mean, that again, that's something that could play into season 6 and thereafter or whatever.
Mhm.
So yeah, very interesting. Again, everything that they write, like, if man, they're so good. I mean, that's why like I specifically like this episode is like one of my favorites, if not my favorite. I don't know if I'm ready to say that. Like when I watched season 4, I was like, party time, hands down. That's my favorite episode. But that's
Mhm.
because of the I love you, Robbie. It's just like I love feeling, you know,
Yeah, there you
like
go. Yeah.
I just don't everyone loves like fun stuff, like
Mhm.
it's because fun makes you feel good, but like to really break your heart, like those gut-wrenching moments, that leaves like an impression on you, and you don't forget that stuff. So like that I Love You, Robbie, when like the following Valentine's Day, which I guess would have been like a month after season 4 came out, like
Mhm.
I made like these fake Valentine cards, like a picture of like Carmen and no, not Carmen,
I
Amanda and Sam, and it says I love you too, Anthony. Like
yeah,
I just kept on changing that because like it was just so heavy on my mind. I was just like, man, that's some shit right there.
those
And
were good.
so
I remember those. Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, so same thing with this episode. It's just like,
Mhm.
man, just the impression that Hector's leaving on me just from his dialogue, but also like Luis's acting
Mhm.
is really good, but also like what's about to follow here is again one of those moments too where you're just like, oh man, like yeah, Amy said this is like Johnny's best timing,
Yeah.
of the entire universe, right? Like you've mentioned it in your I think the Nerfed Hawk video, like
Mhm.
so you mentioned something about the Miyagi verse, just how it's just full of bad timings.
Full of bad
Yeah,
timings, and we have
and
good
so
timing once. Yeah.
So Miguel excuses himself, to which Hector says, "Okay, want each your own, for himself," which
Mhm.
sounds amazing right now because I do love those. I'm a fan of those, and so yeah, Johnny shows up. The music is amazing,
Mhm.
and he calls Carmen, and he says that he's coming home, and embraces Johnny. But then, from the shadows there, and like put yourself in Miguel's headspace at this point, because like he just literally walked out from a pretty dangerous situation, and
Mhm.
he's pretty lucky. Johnny shows up, he feels saved, but then boom, Robbie steps out. It's just like, God, I can't have a win. I just can't have something for me at this point. So yeah, very heartbreaking still.
Yeah, very heartbreaking. I you almost feel like Carmen just didn't know what to say to him on the phone. She was just so happy. And he's like, "I'm coming home." Um,
Yeah.
but she knows something happened, but great timing. Yeah, and it's a tough moment. I guess he sees Robbie. I don't know if he's like hurt or something, or just he's processing too much, and then Robbie goes back. Yeah. So yeah, and I made another note that Miguel leaves without his backpack. Um,
Oh no.
sort of forgot it, but
Ooh. I mean, did you ever see Adventures in Babysitting?
no.
Okay, Elizabeth Shue movie, one of my favorites of hers.
Mm,
There's a little girl that she babysits who's like carrying around a backpack throughout the entire movie. She's got like a Thor helmet, so like shout outs to her for being like one of the early comic book, fans or whatnot. But she forgets a backpack in like this guy's car, and at the end of the movie, he comes back and brings that backpack, and it's kind of like a sweet moment between him and Elizabeth Shue. What if Hector brings back that backpack? Like that's how he finds Miguel. Like you think Miguel is the type to leave his like address and full name, on a backpack.
I don't know. I don't know. I I didn't even really think it through too much because I almost felt like it was just like the writers forgot about it themselves.
You
Uh,
think so? You think they would?
uh, they might have. I mean, you know what? It is on the bed in the scene when he's calling Carmen.
Okay.
Um, because in fact, I was just looking at it like so earlier in the episode, so it is like there. Um, but then
Because
like,
also, I mean, if they left the El Hoyo Verde,
mhm,
like Miguel doesn't know that they're about to hide out, right? They left and went
right,
straight there. So Miguel
mhm,
is not at one point like, hey, can we stop by and grab my bag just real quick? And like he's emotional right now. Like I don't even think
yeah,
he's thinking about his bag after like being with Johnny, because
yeah,
what was he gonna say? Like, hey, I have an idea where this one place is. I need to go grab my bag because at this point,
mm,
like, what's in it? Probably nothing too important. You have your phone, and you're being rescued. So
yeah,
whatever you have, I think you're good without it.
yeah. Change of clothes, maybe. Um, but that was probably it, I guess. Maybe it's not that important.
Yeah, maybe some hairstyling moves,
There
for
you go. Yeah,
for Miguel's
yeah.
hair.
You wanted to look his best, so
Yeah. So let's see here. So yeah. Uh I
This
did.
scene leaked, by
Yeah.
the way. This Johnny and Miguel leaked like in March. It wasn't like when they shot it in Puerto Rico. It came out. Unfortunately I saw this scene like back in March. Someone on set was like recording with their phone and it came out. But
Oh, I did not
yeah,
see that. I
yeah.
feel like I saw like maybe some images of that, you know, I don't know if they were actually filming. Like they might have just been standing around. I kind of
Mhm.
remember like, the FBI shirts and it's dark, but that's
Yeah,
it. But I
yeah,
do try to avoid that stuff.
yeah. I saw it. I forget where. But the funny thing is, for me, when I saw it, like back in March, my biggest thought was, "Oh, Johnny drives the Eagle Fang van down to Mexico. Like that's how he gets to Mexico for some reason." Like that was the biggest thing I saw or thought when I saw it leak. Um, but unfortunately, yeah. But like it didn't ruin anything for me just because like
Right, right.
yeah, you figured there was probably going to be some scene where they reunite, so it's not like it was like, oh my god. Like that's why I'm saying like the biggest surprise for me was that it was the Eagle Fang vet. But
I guess my other note, like last notes about this particular sequence is like, well, number one, it's got to be an awkward ass ride home with the three of them.
mhm.
But also like while Hector is chomping on that chicharron, is he not going to recognize the white lining wearing like the FBI shirt that he had just seen earlier?
I don't think he's paying attention. I think he's drunk and out of it and eating, and he's not looking out the window.
Yeah, I would hope. I would hope.
Yeah,
Otherwise, even if he did, that's something that he's going to keep in the back of his mind, But yeah, I do wonder. So we cut to the very last sequence here. We're back at the Cobra Kai dojo.
hmm
Tori walks in with her trophy and adds
hmm
it to the wall of other trophies. Do you have any idea or thoughts of like what the other trophies are? Like I guess previous students of Terry Silver's that have won championships elsewhere?
yeah. It's kind of like previously they explained where the trophies were. Yeah, I didn't really think of it. I mean, Silver might have gone down to the trophy store and bought a few and just put them
Or
up
like
on the wall.
one of them's like Johnny's from like 1982, was it, or 83?
Well, they're
Like,
from the old dojo. Maybe they are Johnny's, like because Johnny never picked up his trophies, right? He just left the dojo and they were always still
yeah,
there.
because
Um,
Kreese took it over. Yeah.
yeah, so Silver just brought him over. Hey, they're
Yeah.
Cobra Kai dojo
He he
wins,
clo he closed down Johnny's dojo, took
Yeah.
everything, right? Like Johnny
Mm,
showed up in 410 and everything's gone. So
yeah.
maybe he did pack it up. So it could be. Uh, let's see. So yeah, Tori decides to go ahead and hang up her trophy. So she made her decision. She's coming back to class. Terry's gonna make her the future of the dojo, which he told her he would.
Mhm.
Um, and he tells her that there's no class and that he's got some business that he's got to take care of. And as she leaves, Chozen shows up, and I'm just like, oh man. Clearly, or not clearly, but obviously we see that there is a fight that goes down with these senseis,
Mhm.
So I feel like I already kind of knew that Chosen was going to come up on top, but still, like Chosen kind of walking into something that he doesn't know what's going to happen. It's like, oh, am I early? Or something like that. And Terry's like, no, you're right on time. And like a Bond villain, he starts to kind of give us some exposition about like the whiskey that he drank.
Yeah. Yeah, and like at the time you don't understand because you unless Chosen said the wrong word or something like it's just like what's going on? How does he know? I think it's our first glimpse of like Terry Silver super villain, like Bond villain is a good way. Like he just knows that
Oh,
picks
I,
up
I
the
stole
little
I stole that from
details.
a
Yeah.
douche for the next
Yeah.
episode.
Oh,
Yeah, I forgot
right.
about
Yeah. Sensei
uh
Targaryen will take it from Dimitri,
for
but
Dimitri in episode 7. Now, yeah, when Terry was starting to tell the story about the Masataka oh gosh, Ma Masataka Takasuru. When he starts telling Chosen about this gentleman, I thought that he was going to give a story about a guy that like infiltrated something and ended up getting killed. I thought that's where that was going.
mm,
So it was actually kind of a welcome like surprise, like, oh, Kari, he said it wrong, and
Mhm.
for him to have Chozen say it too,
Mhm.
I thought this was really good. Um, I have like my own explanation, but I feel it's probably like not a generic one, a common one. But what's your reasoning for how does Terry Silver know that he's chosen? Because even Chosen asks, but he doesn't answer.
Oh, so how he got the full info? I think
Yeah, because he called him chosen. He's like, oh, how
so.
did you know?
My suspicion is, Terry Silver's supervillain is realizing he's from Okinawa, and then immediately kind of wondering, well, why would he be lying about all this? Probably looked up dojos in Okinawa, and I guess Chosen probably has a website for his dojo in Okinawa and found it.
Yeah.
Um,
He is a
and
master sensei, right?
yeah, right. And then also realized, and then if he sees, it's affiliated with Miyagi Do or something, he's going to immediately make the connection. It's with Daniel. And that's probably how it went.
Yeah. And so like, you know, mine is pretty much that as well, but it's just like, well, Terry Silver is like, again, to take Anusha's word, a Bond villain, right? He's
Hmm.
like the ultimate bad guy. He's got his resources, and so yeah, he's gonna be able to get all the info. Maybe even does the whole Dimitri face recognition, you know? Like he's got surveillance, right? Maybe he's taken that footage and ran it through something. It's like boom, there it is. Kind of like a link tree, it's got all got all of like Master Taguchi's Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah, Terry Silver's got resources. I feel like is what we're supposed to get out of this. And that's why he doesn't even answer. We're wondering it, but not knowing is probably a better answer, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good use of like not over explaining, because and they do this with Silver throughout the season by keeping it always a little bit of like how did he do that? Where did he come from? It makes him more ominous and more like threatening and scary.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And this is where he kind of loses a little bit. And I totally get it too. Like his lifelong friend, he just jailed, and
Mhm.
now he, just came across a guy that he's about to be BFFs with. It's like
Mhm.
you,
Mhm.
you just accepted the position of being my right hand man, but now you have betrayed me. Like you're supposed to be my friend. So like, yeah,
Yeah.
he kind of goes from like 0 to 60. It's like I will
Mhm.
offer triple to any man who takes this down, and you will get the job. And
Mhm.
so, let's talk about this fight. I mean, he takes out all six, which is kind of like, how did you guys miss that, man? Like all six? Come
All
in.
six. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Like the one callback I wanted for Chosen I didn't get. So it's fine. I mean, you know what? They could also explain it away like, well, Peter, six senseis. I mean, why do we have to say it? It's
It
obvious.
was too obvious. Yeah.
Way too
Or
obvious. I mean,
unless they're saving it for a future season. I don't know.
could be, but that the when that image came out and like shout outs to Mike, aka Cobra Kai Wisdom, he was mad at himself that he didn't come up with the all six caption for that
Yeah.
image as well. I was like,
Mhm.
dude, when I came up with it, I was like, how did nobody else at this point? Like it was like way late in the day. So I
Yeah.
thought that I might have been late to it, but yeah, that went viral. People were like, oh yeah, that fits totally.
All six.
All six, man, it's so good.
Mhm.
Yeah, when you and I broke down the trailer, well, gosh, I see. It's been so long now, and so many things has happened. But I feel like I said at some point, like there's no way that they're going to take one at a time. Or if I pointed that out, I thought it was going to be more. I didn't think it was going to be what it is. Like I
Mhm.
thought it was going to be like there's a reason that they're going one at a time because why? Like if you're trying to take this, but then again, like I guess it shows more skills on like the individual sensei, right? Like Terry
Right.
Silver
They
says,
want
yeah,
the credit, right?
right,
So
right,
because then they want the job. So they want to make sure it's known that they're the ones who took him down. So
exactly. But Chosen has no trouble. I mean, he's blocking a lot of different shots.
mhm.
Again, if you follow me, follow me on Instagram, I added like the Mario getting the coins, like for all the hits, and I gave them all like point values. Did you see the 1,000 for the little the throat thing he does at the
When did you? I didn't see this one. I must have
Are
missed
you
it.
serious? Like
I
yeah, it went viral. It's like over
I'll
6,000
I'll
views.
look back on your feed.
You know
I'll
what?
find
You
it.
probably didn't know what it was. So you probably just like, oh, Peter's just sharing the fight. But
So,
but
yeah,
yeah.
I might have, and sometimes, especially if I'm on my desktop, like the videos don't play and stuff, so I won't
Oh,
see it.
yeah. So basically, yeah, I took the clip of him fighting everyone, and then
Mhm.
anytime he actually connects, not just blocking, because blocking I gave no points, but when he actually hits or whatever,
I like
I
that you
had like
have rules.
yeah.
You made rules for the
Yeah,
scoring.
right, right. But the actual point value, it was no rhyme or reason. It was just meant to be funny. Like a
Hmm.
punch to the face was 100, but
Hmm.
like a guy who's moving, he just kicks behind him, 300 points.
Ah.
Something like that. It's just super random. But like, yeah, a point thing will just kind of pop up, but then it was the sound effect of Mario collecting coins. I think it was so it was fun. Um, Okay, so yeah, he beats them all up, and I just love the threat that Chosen leaves him with. No expansion. You leave the LaRussos alone.
Mhm.
We're gonna create this line, and you're not gonna cross it. Otherwise, you'll be you're gonna beg for mercy. So I love it. It's well written,
Yeah,
well
telling a
delivered.
Cobra Kai you're gonna beg for mercy is pretty cool.
Throw it back in his face.
Yeah.
So what do you think about Terry Silver and like how he just kind of stands there?
He's got that like in boss villain, like in a video game, that the boss could fight, but he stands back and lets the henchmen go first.
The
So
Shao Kahn in Mortal
yeah,
Kombat Part 2, where he's
right,
just sitting on
yeah.
his throne watching.
Mhm. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But I do like how it keeps cutting to Terry Silver, and he's just kind of like, God, these guys are worthless.
Yeah.
These are supposed to be the finest senseis in the valley,
Mhm.
which I need to make a correction. And I hate this about like kind of being so active on social media. Like sometimes like my thoughts are quicker than I actually type or talk. Like
Mhm.
sometimes like you corrected me in the first episode where I think I say season, and you corrected me that I meant episode, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
Where,
yeah, it happens.
yeah, oh, all the time. And so, with, gosh, what was I getting? I hate that when I try to like give context and then I lose my train of thought. Um, yeah, it's fine, but great fight. Uh, the senseis also. I called them the All Valley senseis on social media. I've been
Oh,
referring to them as the All Valley senseis, but he says the Valley senseis from the Valley or something like that. So I keep saying
yeah.
All Valley because of
Mhm.
the tournament or
Mhm.
tournament for those that participated in our Twitter
Oh
poll. Do
boy.
you say tournament or tournament? That was actually pretty big.
Tournament.
That was that
Yeah.
was a, that was a fun one. Um, any other thoughts on this
Um,
last sequence here?
my favorite part is like I like the idea that Chosen, after knocking all these guys out, goes back, puts his shoes on, goes into the locker room, changes, and then just strolls out. Like he doesn't just leave the dojo. He goes back and changes and
Yeah.
puts back on his street clothes and then leaves.
Well, thank
So
you for bringing that up because like the other idea I had, I didn't even comment on this, but the fact that Chosen says what he says, turns around and walks off, right? So like he doesn't even fear that
mhm,
Terry Silver's going to come right after him, right after this moment, after making that
yeah.
threat in his dojo, mind you.
Mhm.
Like we learned from the first movie, like you don't come into your dojo or someone's dojo and drop a challenge,
Yeah.
and so
Too much
yeah,
advantage, his dojo. Well, not
yeah.
in this case.
Not in this case, and
Yeah.
this will come back. This will come back in a later episode.
Yeah.
That very line,
Mhm.
but yeah, the fact that Chosen turns his back on Terry Silver, that's just like, man, that's just badass right there.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, so good. All right, so again, kind of continuing a new-ish tradition, or I solicited some feedback from our Facebook group. So if you're a newer listener or a listener that wants to provide some feedback, give your thoughts and whatnot, join the group. Just type in companion with a K. I'm sure you'll be able to find us. And I'm just gonna kind of go through down here. A lot of people commented and replied underneath comments. I'm only gonna read that first comment because there's stuff that like it was between them, right? They weren't replying to
Mhm.
me. There might have been some like, oh, I have something to add, but I'm just gonna read the one there. Um, or your first one rather. So let's see here. Dorian says, "Now I want to do a chili competition." Good luck, Dorian.
Yeah, good luck.
Tell me how that goes, and please
Yeah.
record yourself. Uh, David M. I actually not have not heard from David in a while here, a long time follower. He says, "Now I want to see Robby on an episode of Hot Ones, or at the very least Tanner." So that'd be interesting. I want to see if Tanner could get down on some Hot Ones. Um, the funny thing about that one is like the moment where Robby brings that up. So it sounds like that was kind of their bonding. Not the like I'm throwing shade that that's all they did, but they bonded long enough, and watched enough of those episodes that Robby was able to recognize a certain chili, a certain pepper. Like, oh, that's what
Mhm.
this is.
Yeah.
So I do like that they had some sort of bonding moment, but also funny enough that this is the first shout out to YouTube of the season. So. Next one is from Kiara. She says, "Miguel made me cry, and it's my new record. I never started crying on episode 2. Sholo was great." And I completely agree.
Yeah.
Jamie Lee, the host of In the Front Row, she says, "What does that mean? What tree?" The end of this episode got me good. Miggy being completely broken to see for himself who his dad was, only to realize his dad had been there all along. Stop it. Also, I love that Robbie watched Miguel and Johnny embrace, and that Miguel saw Robbie watch them, because I truly believe Robbie seeing Miguel or Miggy so vulnerable was step one of their healing process. That's an
Yeah, I think
interesting
it's a
comment.
positive. Yeah.
Yeah. Any more to add to that? Yeah, I didn't even because I've been kind of like focusing more on like Miguel's point of view, but for
Hmm.
Robbie's point of view, it's kind of like, oh yeah. So I didn't even think about.
He understands that the relationship they do have, and that Miguel doesn't have a father, or his father is in a very bad man. So yeah, I think it is a a a, a part of the process that he
Yeah,
sees that. So
because like I mentioned in our 501 review, I was just like, like, oh, Robbie is he hears Johnny on the phone with Carmen, and all these things. But now again from Robbie's point of view, it's like, oh wow, we're here to rescue you from your dad. You're over here crying on the phone, like something must really happen, and now like Robbie feels even more bad, right? It's
mhm.
just like, and so like, yeah, you were here to look for your dad, and now you're embracing mine, and that's all you have. That's a whole new level that I didn't even think about that. The next one comes from Jenny H. She says, "Who is the actor who plays young Sato? He looks familiar. Also, I'm still overall disappointed with the Hector story. It didn't really seem to go anywhere. Was it just a vehicle to move along Johnny and Robbie's relationship, or strengthen Johnny and Miguel's relationship? Or will we see Hector in season 6? And finally, I know we're not supposed to question too much for everything or everything will start to unravel. But where does Johnny get all his money? Aside from the pepper bet, we know he gets no money from the pawn shop guy, and he hasn't been teaching for a bit. Plus, he probably doesn't charge his students that much. So seriously, does he still have money left over from Sid? Oh, and don't get me started on the pepper that Johnny rubs in the MMA guy's eye that was dried in Robbie's pocket just a few scenes earlier. Okay, I'm done now. Oh, I love the show. So a lot to unpack there. Anything that stood out for you there? I mean, I feel like we kind of went over a few of those things. Maybe the money issue w wasn't one that we really touched on yet.
Yeah, I mean, the money, it's something they just try to sweep aside and not get into it so much. I guess, he had some saved and whatever. I guess that's about it, but he didn't have a whole lot. And obviously it gets back to the money, well, what, in 2 episodes from now. So it is
Yeah.
something that's kind of like there that they try not to make too much. I kind of agree. I felt like the Mexico storyline could have been longer. I do think they could have maybe gotten one more episode out of this. It does happen so fast, especially for, to me, how season 4 ended was such that big moment, and it's such the cliffhanger. Miguel leaves the tournament and such, and then we get 2 episodes, and everything moves really fast. And we don't really get to really explore it. And Miguel never revealed himself to Hector, and that's kind of an interesting choice. And that I'm just not sure. Like, I wasn't sold on, at least initially. I get it, but
Yeah,
so
in the theories too, like I feel I feel a lot of us kind of feel this way, right? Like I was like, oh man, like I thought it was going to be bigger because like how it was being set up in season four, and
mhm.
you made a great comment. I feel like it was on your live stream on how you could have corrected it. You know, if you wanted like a third episode, like what you could take out completely
From
that
that,
would
yeah,
give,
and
yeah,
I'll bring it up in the next episode's recap.
okay,
But I mean, just yeah, very basically, yeah. Well, you know what? I'll save it for next
yeah, just
episode.
save it. Yeah, yeah,
You know, because it's about next episode. But you know, this episode where we ended on such a high point, like emotionally, like high for you know Miguel. It's a lot of going on here, and then we'll talk more about it. But
absolutely.
I do think they could have put another episode in, and personally, I think the reason they didn't, and I'll mention this more next week, but
Okay.
you know, is it was production reasons because they were shooting in Puerto Rico. They were going to be so long, and they didn't want like Miguel the Sholo went in Atlanta not doing anything. Like when they were shooting. So I think there were some production reasons for it, but I think story wise, I think it could have been done.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. And for me, like I was just like, oh man, you know, like if we kept everything, obviously, right? Like I felt like, oh man, that's just seemed a little you know, kind of short. But when I did the season five recap with Fred, friend of the show, Fred, he even says like, you know, like I get it, you know, we got to get everyone back to the States and kind of, you know, kind of start that story, right? Like having Johnny reacclimated with everybody, have him meet Chozen and all that. So like maybe another episode dedicated to the Mexico storyline. Like you know now they're gonna have to rush everything else, right?
Yeah, but
Um,
see, that's where I disagree, and we'll talk about that
okay,
next
okay,
week. Oh, next
yeah,
episode.
yeah. So, but yeah, I was just kind of like, oh man, yeah, that's it. So that's why I feel it's like, man, there's got to be more. There's got to be
Mhm.
more to it.
Yeah.
Like not in season five, obviously, like not like oh, there could have been more that they didn't give us, but like I feel
Mhm.
they're still setting up, you know, more. So thank you, Jenny, for that. Now Jen, our moderator, she says I did love seeing young Chosen and Sato as well. So just adding to that.
Yeah,
Um,
that great, great. My favorite flashback of the series so far.
yeah.
I think so.
Uh, we got a new listener, also
Mhm.
new to the group, Alondra. Now she is also working on some new t-shirt designs
Mm.
that I think people are gonna like. I will tease one. This is more of like you know, call it like a vanity design or something because I asked her for this specific design because I want the shirt. Like if anybody else wants it, that's great. But it's like I want to wear this. And it might be a certain um image of me shaking hands with two people, you know, if you catch my drift.
Mm.
Yeah, so I think some people have, well, you know, could probably picture something that I overshare a lot of me shaking hands with people. But that's yeah, that's one that I asked for specifically for me, and I go out, I mean, I'll throw it on the Threadless store, and if people want to buy it, that's great. But yeah, more so for me. Um, no, now she's also from Mexico, which is worth pointing out.
Mhm.
She says, so I saw a lot of Mexican fans complaining about the representation of our country, and well, I'm going to be honest, it was not the best, but also not the worst. I've definitely seen worse representation, 007 Spectre, for example. I think the problem was not the people in the show, because you could clearly tell they were Mexican or at least Latinos. The problem was the set. It's like they tried way too hard to make it look like Mexico but didn't actually research what our streets and stuff look like. There were some little corners where it did look like Mexico, like the Mercado, where the chili competition took place, or where they took away Johnny's van. My other problem with it is the yellow sepia filter they put over the episodes only when the whole Mexico stuff was happening. Absolutely horrible. Of course, I don't speak for all of us Mexicans, but I personally think the representation wasn't that bad. But I do think they should have done a little bit more of research and, of course, get rid of that terrible sepia filter. The episode by itself was great. The ending got me crying my eyes out, though I felt the first two episodes a bit rushed, but that's understandable because they wanted to start with the actual plot with Silver and stuff. So she also gives a lot. And the
I
filter choice, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I don't know about the filter, but I think this is ultimately a consequence. This is a consequence of COVID because they did want to shoot in Mexico. It was just going to be too hard with everything that was still going on, so they had to shoot in Puerto Rico. And I think they just Puerto Rico is in Mexico. I mean, I think that's the truth. So they did what they could.
Right.
Sometimes you do what you can. And, honestly, this happens all the time in movies. How many times did they shoot in Atlanta for other cities? Toronto is often used for any city in America. So it kind of happens a lot. And especially, John did say they had wanted to shoot down in Mexico, but it didn't work out. So,
I mean, and that's also on brand for them, right? Like if they can go to where they need to be, they will do it. Okinawa, right? In season 3, they didn't want to like redo the Hawaii thing. If they can get to Okinawa, they're gonna go, and they did. And so, yeah, I totally get that. The filter, like I feel that's probably just like a stylistic choice. Like Flashbacks also has like a certain look to them as well. So that is interesting, but yeah, some good
it
feedback
helps
there.
distinguish locations. Like you visually distinguish your locations. Just so it's a way to do that. I don't know what other choices there would be. That's not my specialty, but
Right.
yeah.
Might be a good question to ask somebody.
Mhm.
Another long one. This is also I don't know if he's a newer listener. I feel like he might be, but he is definitely new to the group. He said he found us because of the podcast, so I'm assuming a new listener. So this is JS. He says, how about that performance of Luis Roberto Guzman, though?
Mhm.
Obviously, we knew he was dangerous throughout the whole series, but he comes off as easygoing and charming. That's something we actually haven't said, though. Like he is charming. We said that he's nice and friendly and all that stuff. Charming as hell, right? Like Miguel was like, "Oh, are you like the mayor?" Something like
He
that.
knows everyone, as
Right.
I talked
Yeah.
about. Yeah, he just
Yeah.
knows
Yeah.
everyone.
Jay continues in an instant where he's warned that the FBI is looking for him. He does a 180. You can tell how dangerous he is by the look in his eyes and tone of voice, especially when he says, "Don't make me ask again." Yep. See, commented on
Mhm.
that. It really leaves you feeling like, whoa, and scared for Miguel. It also makes me wonder what would have happened if Johnny and Robbie didn't show up there with their FBI shirts. Funny dad joke, by the way. Who's to say Miguel would have never found out or put into a worse situation without the event happening, without that event happening? Then to talk about laying low for a few weeks, pulling out a gun. I had that in my notes and I forgot to mention it.
Mhm.
Yeah, he pulls out a gun all
Yeah, he
nonchalant.
does.
Oh gosh, here we go. You know, uh, Drinking heavily and going on a rant about this in front of this random boy. Total 180, and his performance was excellent, I thought. I don't think this is the last we'll see of him. I think it's kind of mirrors the Okinawa trip from season 3, where the trip had a specific purpose and then easily forgotten and never mentioned again. I think that was done on purpose. As mentioned from one of your podcasts, Miguel did leave his bag at his house. Interesting. Who said that? You
I
just
don't
said
actually.
that. Is he
Yeah, I
is
said it. I don't
is he
remember it on your podcast. I don't know
yeah.
if anyone else brought
Did
it up.
is he Jay, are you from the future? Let's see. And Hector is involved
This
in the
is like
fighting
it's like
scene.
Spaceballs, the real time
Right.
audio
Yeah.
video.
Yeah, he fast forwarded and now
Yeah,
he
he fast.
rewound it. Yeah. When will now be done? Soon. Um, let's see. Miguel did leave his bag at the house, and Hector is involved in the fighting scene. So I'm thinking that during the world tournament with one of his fighters, Hector will be there and recognize Miguel, realize Carmen is his mother, and it sets up Hector as a villain. Or Hector will go to Miguel's house to return his bag, only for Carmen to answer the door. Either way, I'm not going to be surprised if he shows up again. Jay, are you from the future? I'm going to ask that again. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. And I don't read these ahead because I don't want anyone's like, thoughts, kind of, I want your guys' thoughts to be your own and mine,
Yeah.
my own. So yeah, I don't want it to bleed in together, but that's crazy. I wonder if he heard somebody else's and it kind of just, misspoke, which is very possible too. There's,
Mhm.
a number of podcasts out there. Um, yeah, that is interesting. he definitely pointed out some things that we've brought up. Let me see, what else did he say? Oh, yeah, comparing it to the Okinawa trip. I can see that, and that actually kind of makes sense too. I mean,
Mhm.
we're not really quite saying making that comparison, but we're kind of saying it, right?
Yeah.
Like, we feel like there's going to be more, except for like Okinawa. I don't know. I don't know if did you think there was going to be more on your first watch? Like, did you think like, oh, Chozen's going to come back, or like I thought that was a kind of one and done, the Okinawa stuff.
Um, I had been asked many times, and I always said, in fact, I think in a way the way it happened is I think like, are they going to go back to Okinawa? And I always said, well, maybe Okinawa will come to LA. That's usually how I said it. I didn't necessarily know the way it happened, Chosen coming, but it is something that was always in the back of my head. I actually thought it'd be later in the series.
Okay.
Like that is after season 3. Like I didn't know it would be at the end of season 4, but
Right. Okay. Yeah, I thought that was it. Because like I've shared this a number of times on the podcast that, like before season 4 came out. Yeah, before season 4 came out, people were asking, "Oh, what if Chosen comes back?" I was like, "Why? Why would he come back? It makes no sense."
Mhm.
You know. So, but it makes total sense. Like you watch season 4 and then see that at the very end. Like, yeah, who else is Daniel going to call when he needs help? Um, but yeah, I did not see Chosen coming back at all. So.
Mhm.
Shayna, she's the next person who left feedback here. She says, "Does it bother anyone else that we still never got actual verbal confirmation that Miguel found the right Hector Salazar? Like, yeah, the story Carmen tells pretty much matches the backstory he gave Miguel, but like, still, I'm sure lots of career criminals have had their wife leave them when they wouldn't stop the illegal, dangerous stuff. So like, that could have been anyone." So I kind of mentioned that, like I
Yeah.
feel like maybe I did see a little bit of her feedback because I brought that up earlier, but
Mhm.
it's just way too on the nose. And why would they spend time on like the wrong guy,
Yeah,
right?
at some point you have to stop overthinking it, and just take the story as it is. Like, yeah, this is him. So,
Yeah,
and by the way, just verbal confirmation going through all that actually kind of makes the show worse. So it's actually better the way it went. You just got to be willing to make that association. Okay, this is his father. Like,
right.
um,
Yeah, and
yeah.
like I must have said it maybe in different versions. Like I feel like at least two instances during this particular episode, I said
Mhm.
like like not knowing is probably like the better answer, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So like if you get that confirmation, then what? That kind of takes away from like in the event they bring this character back, right? It's like,
Yeah.
like if it's just a surprise, like, oh, okay, great, because we did get that confirmation. Now there's a more of a mystique, a surprise.
Mhm.
Like I think people are more like they like the unknown more than like the actual knowing, right?
All right.
So I mean, there might be some things that you want an answer for, but like when I forgot what was it that Brianna asked Michael. And he's like, "Do you want to know?" And she's like, kind of recanted, and it's like, "Oh,
Oh, who
I
who
don't know."
was Miguel calling for
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
when he said sensei? And the answer is Johnny, but Brianna, you don't have to forget, yeah, I said that, but that was the answer. But
Right, yeah. And
because
Michael said
by
it
the
like,
way, not to get totally off topic, when Miguel writes the letter at the end of the episode, he says, tell Johnny, or tell Sensei and Mr. LaRusso. So
yeah,
in the letter, so that's how he refers to him. So
there you go. So yeah, see, and Michael said it like, well, I have you want the answer? I'll tell you. You know. So I do like that. Like sometimes you don't want to know certain things just because, and even like filling in the gaps. Like, oh, well, how did Terry Silver know? Do we want to really know the answer? Because that might not be sexy, right? Like kind of just guessing
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
yourself.
It's
Yeah,
better. It's better the way it is.
yeah.
Because yeah, it adds a mystery and ominous presence to Silver that for like a bad guy is great.
Exactly. The next one is from James, James P. Now, this name I don't recognize. Again, we've been getting a lot of new people in the group. Thank you guys for joining because there's so many other groups out there and groups with like, 80,000 people, and we have like just a little over 1,000. But I feel like these are, you know, not to say like other groups have, people that are, not respectable and whatnot, but we have people that follow our rules. Like we have very simple rules, and it doesn't get out of hand. People behave, and we have a good time. But it always kind of like it makes me feel good when I see somebody kind of engaging in the group that I don't know. You know, it's like, oh,
Hmm.
cool. You know, like this is a place that they
Hmm.
clearly feel comfortable enough commenting or posting and things like that. James asks, did Hector recognize Carmen and Yaya in the photo when he was looking through Miguel's phone? I thought at the time he might return in a later episode and he might still return in a future season. What do you think?
I think it's suspense, and he didn't see the photo. So no, he didn't recognize. He looked away, right as it came up because the crowd was cheering or something. So it's a very suspenseful moment. But he didn't see it. So
Right. Your heart's supposed to be pounding for Miguel at that moment.
exactly. And there's that moment where, oh my God, did he see? Did he see? Like you freak out, but he didn't see it. So
Yeah, because if like I didn't do this, but if you go back and kind of watch it slower, like his thumb swipes and he basically looks away as that picture is switching
is is
to
coming up. Yeah.
right. And then when we see it again, it's open, right? Like the picture is
Mhm.
right there, but he's not looking at it. That's when he hands Miguel back the phone.
Right,
So,
right.
but yeah. Yep. Thank you for that, James. And there's a few other comments on here as well. I'm just gonna kind of glance over it real quick. This next one comes from Mikey. He says, I expected to see or hear something about Sato since we knew about Daniel going to Okinawa in season three. It was great to see him in a flashback. I actually thought Tanner played the whole pepper thing pretty well. I didn't think he actually ate it, but Tanner is a magician, so he probably knows sleight of hand pretty. Sleight of hand? Sleight of hand? Slate.
Yeah, slate of
Yeah,
him.
sleight of hand pretty well. I thought the parallel stories of two sons getting to know their long lost dads was interesting. I was really worried for Miguel, but not as worried as I was for Chozen in that dinner scene. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. It was the most tense scene that I have watched in a long time. It was written so well. There were several lines and moments where you thought that Terry knew. Also, Chozen explaining about the importance of honor left me choked up.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, it was really great. Like that's I always point to episode two, when people were asking my thoughts about season five, before that came out, having seen the screeners, I just kept on talking about like, yeah, there's just very intense moments and blah blah blah. Like though when I
Mhm.
said intense, it was always about episode two,
Yeah.
a lot more sequences, but that's one that came up to me is like, well, Chosen's going to Terry's house. He's there by himself. He doesn't
Mhm.
know what Terry's capable of. Like he only hears it from Daniel. So yeah, I completely agree. So thank you, Mikey, for all of that. And again, there's a bunch of different comments in there. I'm gonna have to go back and read some of these comments. Um, so we got the next one from Anne. She says a few things here. My favorite part of the episode was definitely Chosen the Mole. I loved his interaction with Tori, which I think had an impact on her actions moving forward. Agreement with Kreese notwithstanding. I was also scared the whole time he was in Silver's mansion. I thought something had to be poisoned, whether the whiskey or the food, but when Chosen toasted with Kari, I knew he was found out. Great callback to 304, where Kumiko specifically corrected Daniel at the bar. So there we go. I missed that one.
Wow.
Did you?
Yeah, I gotta go. No, I missed that. I'd have to check.
Yeah,
Wow.
Anne's great too with her because she's also I, apologies if I got this wrong. I think she's Dawnflower in the Cobra Kai's dojo.
Hmm.
Yeah, she's one of the dojo members, so she always leaves feedback too. So and I got to meet Anne when I went down for Paley Fest. So let's see.
Hmm.
She continues. Also love the graffiti shout out to Mark, aka Let's Be Water. I didn't
Hmm.
even notice the graffiti on the van until my third or fourth rewatch, and I would love to hear the story about how that all went down. Well, Anne, hopefully you heard it. Um, Also, the eyebrowless dude in the chili contest looked very alien and reptilian. I couldn't put my finger on why he looks so weird, but it's the eyebrows or lack thereof, and that's probably it. I'm going to add this because it's Amy. She says, I'm pretty sure that it's almost his perfectly square head. He had a Dick Tracy villain look about him. Great movie. I love that Dick Tracy movie with Warren Beatty. And the last one comes from Jera, who has seen the musical three times, I feel. Her and Anne, they went to go see the musical. Um, let's see. She says, although Chosen got found out by Terry, I do love the fact that Terry tried to teach him a lesson by having the other senseis try to take him down. Chosen is so badass that he took down all six of the senseis by himself.
Mhm.
Sensei Joe is also one of my favorite songs from the soundtrack. Oh yeah, absolutely. We haven't really talked about the soundtrack, but yes, it's out, two volumes. I
Mhm.
like the second volume better, but to each their own. Johnny and Robbie continuing to bond was great. The pepper eating contest was awesome. I love Johnny trying to learn Spanish. His pronunciation of hombre, and that he says
Um,
Hector the Salazar is quite
yes.
amusing. Do you have any
So
thoughts on that? Well, why does he say the Salazar? Do you think? Yeah, so my reasoning is that I felt that Johnny thinks that like Salazar isn't just his last name; that it actually means something.
it's
So
like
he
a
calls him
title,
Hector.
like
Yeah,
yeah, that
the Salazar. Like, does he think that it means like the salamander or something? I don't know.
mhm,
Um,
yeah.
and also Sholo's acting is so good in the emotional scenes. That boy makes me cry just by looking at his facial expressions. He's good. Sholo's really good. Yeah, with those emotional boys. Like he always does like that open mouth cry, and that gets me every time because I feel that's so real.
Mhm,
But yeah, that's the end of the feedback. I want to thank everyone, for leaving that. That was like a lot, but in a good way.
mhm.
Um, yeah, just a lot of good comments there. Anything else that stuck out to you from all that I read that you want to touch on?
Um, yeah, one thing going back to the opening scene with Sato, I think another thing that I never thought we would get more Sato like that. I thought like in season 3 when Daniel's in Okinawa and we get like a brief update or recap on Sato when he's talking to the woman and she's like, "Oh, Mr. Sato saved Tomi Village. He reinvested and everything." Like I remember thinking, like, okay, that's just gonna be what we get from Sato for the
Yeah,
series. They crossed that off. They filled us in and what happened and like that was it. And I think that's also partially why I liked that flashback when he was back there because I also wasn't expecting it. So
yeah,
seeing
it's
more so yeah.
yeah. I think the probably the majority of us did not expect to see young Sato, but it makes sense, right? Like you got chosen in every episode, which we didn't know. I thought he was going to be like maybe in half of the episodes. Like I really had no idea. Never really thought it through, to be honest with you. But like I got to figure out where I said it. I wonder if it's prop bets, probably prop bets, where I was like, I feel there's going to be like a, maybe a Sato flashback, like we'll kind of get that relationship. But having chosen there, like you could, not that you have to, but I feel like it kind of makes sense to kind of also honor like that second movie, with those
Mhm.
characters as well. And also like, I do feel like one of Josh's earlier Twitter profiles was a picture of Sato, where was it him looking at Miyagi from the back, or it was one of those sequences?
Mm.
And I remember reaching out to him and asking about that, and I kind of forget his answer. It was something to the effect of he just thought that like it was a good shot, or something like that.
Mhm. And I didn't know if they were ever going to recast. I mean, I guess we know. Like, I mean, while they recast young Kreese and Silver, um, but then like we have those actors, so like I didn't know like would they go back and recast? So because it to me it leaves the door open. Are they then willing to recast Miyagi, a younger Miyagi? So
You
because
you know, I wonder if I have said this somewhere because like I know like I've thought of it. I feel if they do it would be, young Miyagi in a flashback that they would recast, right? I mean, it makes sense with Sato because he's not Mr. Miyagi. He's a character that most people probably don't even think of, that don't really care for that second movie.
yeah.
So to me that makes sense. And I may have even said like, oh, if they brought back Sato, maybe it's like a body double like Miyagi, but that was kind of quote unquote present time, right? I mean, even though
Mhm.
that was a
Right.
bit of a flashback, that's more like Karate Kid present time. So
Mhm.
if they were gonna do something like Sato from like any timeline from the movies, maybe it's also like from the back, kind of
Mhm.
thing. But yeah, I feel we could get a recasting of Mr. Miyagi, but I would prefer a prequel of Mr. Miyagi
Right, if
series
they
or
recast it for
yeah,
the series, yeah.
See Watch Party's video post Mind of a Soldier
Yeah,
from Companion.
it's back there, but if you look it up, yeah, it's there. Oh,
Yeah.
that was the other thing I thought. Like, if there's a Miyagi prequel, and maybe we have a Sato now to play the part, and now we
Oh,
just need the Miyagi. Like,
yeah, we got young Chosen.
yeah, yeah.
We got everybody. We got even got Kim Sung Young. We can have that
Mhm,
Sato where it's like,
mhm.
no, I got here first, punk. Like, these are my American soldiers that I'm
Yeah.
training. You know. So yeah, that's so many possibilities, right? Like, could they open up a Miyagi verse kind of like the MCU? Like these are established characters. Could these spin-offs work? Like pre-season 5, if you asked me about like a chosen spin-off, well, I'd want it. I don't know if everybody else is gonna. But then after seeing
Mhm.
season 5, it's like, how do you not want a chosen spin-off? At this
Yeah.
point. Like he such a badass and people love badasses. Look at Johnny. We watched season 1, we're like, man, Johnny's a badass. Look at him.
Yeah. Mhm,
And so yeah, we like to root for people. And
mhm,
even when they're like a little bit of anti-hero too. Like we like those guys.
mhm.
Walter White, for example. Come on.
Right. Yeah.
So any other last comments, thoughts?
I think that's it for now.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of fun. It is definitely one of the top episodes of the season. I can't rank them yet, but definitely, it's a very well constructed episode. Um,
Yeah, that's a great word. Well constructed.
mhm.
And maybe we can rank after we're done with like 5, 10. So we'll see. So watch party. I mentioned the Nerf Talk video. Do you I feel like you did tease. Was it like a Terry Silver and a Chosen fight coming up that you're working on now?
Yes, yes. Oh, I got to do that next, and we'll do some season 6 predictions on the channel too. And there was also a Terry Silver video earlier this week, so definitely the content and the stuff and analysis and predictions will keep coming.
There we go. And I've teased it on the last episode, but the upcoming interviews, I mentioned earlier that AJ Hicks, his interview is out. The next ones at the time of this recording, I have Julia Macchio coming out, Gianni DiCenzo. Those have been recorded. It's just going to be a matter of me putting them out, space them out a little bit. I've been pumping out a lot of episodes. I know you guys like them. Vanessa Rubio. So some of your guys' favorite,
Vanessa, yeah.
yeah, characters coming back. So that's gonna do it. Watch Party. Where can people find you if they want to give you a follow if they haven't yet already?
I am on YouTube at Watch Party. That's where most of my videos and stuff. I do stream at least every Sunday, 3:30 Eastern. I've been doing some streams Friday night. I don't know, we'll keep that up. And also on Twitter and Instagram, Watch Party One, if you want to drop in, say hi, or anything like that. So
All right. And for me, if Twitter is your thing, I am at Cobra Kai Pod and on Instagram at Cobra Kai Companion with a K. Check out the website, bookmark it if you like the interviews. I will be posting all the interviews there. I'm probably 2 behind, which is not bad. It wasn't like 20 something, prior to season 5.
mhm.
So I have most of them up there. I have the links to the YouTube channel and also Spotify, just because I didn't want to do like, oh, here's a link to Apple if you don't use Apple. So I feel Spotify is easier for people to stream if they want to stream it from work or things like that. So thank you guys as always for your continued support. And until the next episode, look at this MMA grab ass bullshit.